the guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
We love you. You're very special.
In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live for Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. In the news this evening, a report out earlier today says those mysterious drones flying over New Jersey, they're actually an Iranian op with a mothership offshore. So move over Chinese spy balloon. Now we have jihadi drones before the year's end. The United Healthcare CEO assassin is identified as 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, and he's arrested at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And with each new detail, this story becomes a little bit more strange. Daniel Penny is acquitted at his New York manslaughter trial for the subway chokehold of Jordan Neely, and now he's out talking to media, and he does seem like exactly the guy that we all thought he was. I will take your calls in the second half of the show, but my friendly producer, call screener Tim, he's away tonight, so it will just be me, which means I have to do my best to manage it technically. We'll see how that goes. Duct tape will be necessary. But if you'd like to call, the link to the Discord server is in the description. There are instructions for how to participate in the server. I expect to get to those in the second half of the show, so about an hour from now, give or take. Take your Super Chats as well, and I know I didn't get to Super Chat until the end of the Wednesday stream last week, so I'm committed to a mid-show Super Chat break this week. I appreciate your support for the show. I won't do that again. But speaking of, hey, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month over on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com or mattis.gay. Listener support is what keeps my operation running, and it is, of course, hugely appreciated. There are perks available for your support as well. mattchristiansenmedia.com/support. Linked in the description. And, of course, we got to say hi to our friendly listener-owned business for the evening, and that's our friends at Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing. These are high-quality, handmade premium hardwood cutting boards, charcuterie boards, serving trays, and more, all of which, of course, are great gift options or the perfect piece to class up your kitchen or anywhere else in your home. Last year, Blake at Kineo Mountain made me a cutting board engraved with my channel logo, and it looks amazing. It has been a part of our family kitchen ever since, and it hasn't aged a bit. In addition to the quality, that's the best part about Kineo Mountain's products. They are fully customizable, not just in the materials, but in the engravings too. So if you'd like to personalize a gift like that, that can be arranged. Or if you have any other custom hardwood project in mind, no matter how big or how small, Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing can make that a reality for you. Just get in touch at kineowood.com. All Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products are made in Colorado from premium domestic hardwood sources. Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing is the absolute highest quality woodworking that will last you forever. Listeners of this show get 10% off all Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products and services using promo code MATT10 at checkout. That's promo code MATT10 for 10% off at kineowood.com, kineowood.com. Find everything you need from Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing plus other great offers from the rest of our friendly listener-owned businesses like Hero Soap Company, Western Razor Company, Hope Innovations, and more. That's all at mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners for listeners. And speaking of our friends over at Hero Soap Company, there is still time to pick up a Freedom Box to make a great Christmas gift. The Freedom Box comes with 4 exclusive soaps that celebrate the triumphs of American history: Boston Tea Party, Over Mountain Frontiers, and Liberty Cleanse. get all 4 in the Freedom Box from Hero Soap Company, a great Christmas gift choice. Listeners of this show get 10% off everything from Hero Soap. Promo code MCListener. Before I get into it, got to mention the upcoming Christmas, New Year's holiday schedule. There will be some adjustments to the show. I think I'll probably be going solo for the rest of the year, as in no guests. Guests will come back in January. I'm speaking with some new ones at the moment, and I'm really optimistic for what's going to happen in the new year. But as far as the show before the new year, it's sort of an awkward year because Christmas and New Year's Day are Wednesdays this year. And that means I'm not going to do shows on those Wednesdays. So I've decided, because this has been something of a stressful year, as you've heard about, I did plan to take time off earlier in the year. And then, of course, like everything about my career got blown up. So I'm going to take the weeks off of Christmas and then into the new year, meaning there's not going to be a Wednesday the 25th show, Christmas Day. There's not going to be a January 1st show, Wednesday, January 1st. But I'll still be on Sundays. So Sunday, December 22nd, Sunday, December 29th, and then back on regular schedule January 5th. So we'll do this Wednesday show. Next Wednesday, the 18th, there will also be a Wednesday show. And then the Wednesday show takes a 2-week break, is how that'll work. And as always, if you're looking for the show, you can't find it, check the website, mattchristiansenmedia.com. I post notifications there. Or check my X feed at ML Christiansen. I post content notifications there as well. I also, before I get into it, I want to give a shout out to listener, super chatter, Long Dong John for helping out with timestamps in Tim's absence.
We love you. You're very special.
I mentioned I wouldn't be able to do timestamps, and then he shows up in my email inbox and does them anyway. So we really appreciate that. But hopping into the news, it was already a foregone conclusion. It's just a formality because he was going to leave one way or another. But earlier today, FBI Director Christopher Wray announced his resignation. If he didn't resign, Trump was going to fire him anyway. So pursuant to his nomination of Kash Patel to replace him, this was going to happen. It's just the formal development of it now. He's not out yet, actually. He will leave with the Biden administration. So still has a little bit of time until mid to late January, meaning I won't do the I will remember you montage quite yet. Now, I only learned about these drones on the East Coast and New Jersey specifically because I've received a few emails in recent days from listeners like, do you have drones flying over where you live? No, I don't. At least not in any meaningful volume. But if you're on the East Coast, if you're in New Jersey, there have been dozens of reports. I don't know if there are swarms of these things or how many there are, but dozens of reports of these mysterious drones in the sky. Nobody really knows what they are. Well, just hours ago, New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew told Harris Faulkner on Fox News that he has very qualified and reliable sources telling him that these drones are, in fact, from an Iranian mothership parked off the East Coast.
Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the East Coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly.
Iran has the capability to pull up along our eastern seaboard and launch drones the size of an SUV into the skies of several states, particularly New Jersey, where we know the incoming president has a large home. Also in the same county or nearby where some of these drones in New Jersey have been seen. Congressman, this is serious.
We've got to bring them down.
Okay, notably, he's not telling us how he knows that these are Iranian. It's just trust the sources. But after he said that, the Pentagon denied the claim, which I take as conclusive evidence of its accuracy. Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh said today, quote, There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones toward the United States, which means there's for sure an Iranian mothership right off the east coast of the United States. Whatever these drones are, they are apparently, or at least some of them, are very big. These are not your cheap drones that fly around, take a few GoPro photos or videos. Some of them are the size of an SUV, reportedly, and they've been flying around for at least the last week. Governor Phil Murphy said on Thursday there was no known threat to the public at this time. But if you don't know what these drones are, how do you know they're not a threat to the public? And per the New York Post reporting earlier today, even the FBI has no idea what these drones are or how to stop them, which I find to be a baffling statement. Whether they're Iranian drones, whether they're something else. What do you mean you have no idea how to stop them? Do we not have guns or missiles or something that can shoot them out of the sky? I know that there are some logistical concerns or precautions you take when doing that, but how are we getting out-teched by some mystery? And if nobody knows what these are, nobody has an explanation for what these are, why exactly are they flying around unchallenged or unshot down? There is a risk of debris falling from the sky. Sure, some of these are very large, the size of a large car. Also, we don't necessarily know what is in the drones. Are they carrying some kind of explosive? Are they carrying some kind of hazardous material? Whatever else, that would be a concern too. But it seems to me the bigger concern is figuring out what the hell these are, and that's going to take getting one of them out of the sky. And even though the Biden administration has been remarkably incompetent on low-level foreign tech issues, like the Chinese spy balloon flying in our sky last year, even as reported, if this is true, if it's some kind of Iranian op, and they're coming in from some sort of offshore station or offshore ship, that would be a stunning failure, even for them. How is it that an Iranian offshore ship, how does it get there without being sunk in about 5 seconds? Presumably to fly drones over our landmass, it would have to be pretty close in proximity to do that. And these drones are different from the balloon, the Chinese spy balloon, in that they're powered by something, or they're more substantial, they're more sophisticated than the spy balloon was. The spy balloon had solar power capabilities, but its actual power needs were very minimal. I guess it was maneuverable, but it didn't have great maneuverability. These appear to be very mobile, very controllable. Part of the reason they say they can't figure out what they are is Phil Murphy has said, well, we're trying to track them, but every time we try to track them, they go dark. Okay, I mean, what? We can't track UFOs in the sky. Not UFOs like way out there, high up in the atmosphere. These are low-flying aircraft. I don't know if go dark is a metaphor there or if it actually means they just turn off their lights. But you're telling me we don't have any sophisticated tracking mechanism to figure out what they are or where they're going? Regardless, if these are actually car-sized, maneuverable, you are not powering those without some sort of sophisticated power source. This isn't like the balloon where it just relies on the flotation of the balloon. It's lightly maneuverable. Its minimal power needs for maneuvering or for data transmission are handled by solar power. These don't appear to be solar aircraft. There's got to be some power source for them. And if there is some power source for them, they have to be near some sort of base of operation. So where is that? Again, I'm not speculating that these are higher tech. That is what Phil Murphy is saying. Well, we're trying to follow them, but we just can't because they're sophisticated. This, according to the governor. So even though it's it's Trump party time, everyone's excited for the new year and the new presidency. There are still 5 or 6 weeks of Biden left, and don't forget the wisest words Obama ever said. Don't underestimate Joe's ability to fuck things up. So we'll see where that goes. By now you have surely heard, but on Monday morning, police arrested the suspect in the street assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last week. His name is Luigi Mangione, He is 26 years old. More on his background in a moment, but he was arrested after he was spotted at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He was apparently eating a hash brown, which is an excellent choice from the McDonald's breakfast. On his person, he had a handwritten manifesto and the same gun, allegedly, that he used to kill the CEO. It's now known to be a 3D printed Glock 19. He also had the same fake New Jersey ID he used to check into the hostel at which he was staying in New York City, and he had $8,000 cash on him. Mangione was arrested first on charges for the gun and the forged document. He's now been charged for the murder as well. And he's still currently being held in Pennsylvania without bail. Of course, authorities want to send him to New York, but he's fighting that extradition. Unclear, He was hauled. He was actually hauled into court for an extradition hearing yesterday, and he shouted at the cameras something like, "It's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people. It's lived experience."
It's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people. It's lived experience.
Okay. So what exactly does that statement mean? Is the arrest itself an insult to the intelligence of the American people? Is he the wrong guy in his claim? Or the charges an insult? If he is implying that it's a wrongful arrest, he didn't do it, he's innocent, whatever, the written manifesto that Luigi apparently had on his person all but admits to the crime. Maybe there's more than meets the eye here, and more on that manifesto in a moment. As far as why he's fighting extradition to New York, or what basis the lawyer, his lawyer, thinks he has to do that, his lawyer says there's insufficient evidence to demonstrate that Mangione is connected to the New York murder, and they need to see more. Mangione and his lawyer are saying that that the money on him, the $8,000, was planted as well. Even if that were the case, if you could show me it was for sure planted, obviously police misconduct or investigator misconduct matters, but as far as his connection to the murder, that's not really key evidence of anything. Legal analysts say it's this is all more likely just a play to get more time to build their defense. Now, how long will it be until Mangione is sent to New York? Could be days, could possibly be weeks. The Blair County District Attorney in Pennsylvania says the process can sometimes take up to 45 days. There's all sorts of formalities that need to be done now. The state of New York needs to get involved. A bunch of hearings. He will get to New York. He's not going anywhere. It probably is just a delay tactic. He was denied bail yesterday. He will remain in state prison in Pennsylvania. The process will continue until he is shipped to New York, and maybe Alvin Bragg will let him go there, as is customary. But what was Mangione doing in Altoona? That is actually unknown. One of the witnesses at this McDonald's at which he was arrested says he heard, not he saw, but he heard that Mangione was in town for a few days. If that's true, that would imply that he had some sort of reason to be there. But apparently he was outed at this McDonald's originally by a group of guys who are there regularly, and they were joking, or at least one of the friends of the guy saying this thought he was joking about Luigi looking like Luigi, the CEO shooter. And then an employee picked up on it and called police. Making it even weirder, one of those guys who spotted Luigi was actually Ray Apps.
One of my friends, and I thought he was kidding, when the shooter, I'm assuming was the shooter who they made the arrest on, came in, he made a comment, "God, that looks like the shooter from New York." The group of us, I thought it was more of a joke, and we were kidding about it. The employee that thought it was him, that I guess started the initial investigation on it. I talked to her later. She goes, "Actually, you and your friends and all were making a joke, almost like saying, you know," and that's pretty much about it.
Fed.
Just kidding, of course. That's not Ray. Ray lives in an undisclosed Rocky Mountain location in his RV. That guy's name is Larry. Larry what? Who knows? It's just Larry, or so he wants us to believe. But because this McDonald's, or the employee at this McDonald's, snitched on everyone's favorite assassin, Luigi, the review bombing for that McDonald's has begun, because the degenerates of the internet are very mad at that business for narking on Luigi. It's all happened on Google reviews. I assume it's happened on Yelp and elsewhere, but Google is actively deleting the review bomb reviews. What's happening here? People are mad at the McDonald's because the McDonald's outed Luigi and got him arrested. And so they're going and posting a whole bunch of negative reviews that they think are very clever and funny about how there are so many rats at this McDonald's, giving it a 1-star review. And Google is removing them because that is a violation of their review policy. Now, I've seen claims on X and elsewhere that the employee who actually called police was doxxed. I don't see a lot of that floating around. I have seen some videos about wanting to beat that person up. No official identification made that I've seen, but a report out today says the grandson of that McDonald's employee who made the call. So if this is correct, the woman who made this call to police is elderly, and her grandson is posting on social media saying, "Hey, please stop harassing my grandma." There are social media posts identifying this woman as the worker, and I'm not going to name her. I'm not going to show those posts because I don't know if the claim is accurate. I don't want to participate in the doxing, but it is out there. This grandson says that police are threatening to come to, or that not police, people are threatening to come to her job, and or her house, or find her and do horrible things to her. This grandson says he's tired of people threatening the family for rightfully reporting the killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So, yes, just wait until the mob drags a grandma out from McDonald's or from her home, maybe curb stomps her, American History X style, and they'll celebrate that too, because that rat, of course, had it coming. So what about the motive, and what about the manifesto for Luigi? Now, I had read on X that actually there was a quote from Luigi upon arrest. He said, "I hate paying the premiums, so I shoot the CEO." I learned that is not an accurate quote, though. He's actually denying involvement. Or is he? This is what I don't understand. He's shouting, saying, this is an insult to the intelligence of the American people, but also I'm fighting extradition because I have no... But also, well, he's shouting and fighting the extradition, but then he has this manifesto on him that all but says, I did it and here's why. So what's going on here? Well, let's look at that manifesto. It reads in part, quote, "I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy. United is one of the largest companies in the U.S. by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, and Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these people have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument." Well, if you can't explain in a little bit of detail why that guy specifically deserved to be shot in the back, it probably was not right to shoot that guy in the back. Now, as far as the argument, lots of healthcare spending per capita, which he's referring to there, can be the result of a few things. Number one, being a wealthy country, as the United States is, that means that you can and you do spend a lot on healthcare, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not to say that we handle everything perfectly, but it is to say that spending a lot of money on healthcare is not necessarily an indicator of abuse or an indicator of bad things. It's an indicator of having the wealth to spend money on healthcare. Number two, it's indicative of massive government spending in that industry. Medicare, Medicaid, insurance subsidies. Who could believe that so much public money pumped into an industry would make all the numbers in that industry go up? Anybody who believes that dollars spent must correlate precisely with life expectancy is a little foolish, I think. You know what determines your life expectancy much more than United Healthcare policy details or their insurance policies generally? Your own lifestyle choices determine life expectancy primarily. United Healthcare did not make you stuff your face. United Healthcare can't make you stop doing drugs. United Healthcare can't stop you from drinking or smoking. The idea that if United Healthcare makes a profit as well, that if they make a profit, that life expectancy must increase, it's kind of insane, actually. A lot of the time, insurance companies and other healthcare providers, they're providing services or they're paying for care to correct poor lifestyle choices. And the reality is there is an upper limit to a human life. We can't socialize our way to immortality, of course. You could spend every dollar that we have in this country or that we generate in this country on healthcare. People will still die about the same point they die in life. There is an upper limit. There's a maximum that we can achieve. Again, it's not to say that United Healthcare is some perfectly run company and there's no problems there at all. It is to say that the argument here has a lot of holes in it. And note, this manifesto provides no personal connection to United Healthcare or Brian Thompson, the CEO who was murdered. Did Luigi have a United Healthcare policy? Was he denied payment by United Healthcare? Totally unexplained. I would think that if he did, that would be point A, B, or C to reference. He didn't do that. Okay, so what do we know about Luigi Mangione, the guy, beyond his manifesto? Well, he comes from a fairly prominent Maryland family. As far as I've seen, that family has stayed pretty quiet. There was one public statement that says they're devastated, but they're not really doing a lot of public speaking on the issue. They own 2 country clubs and a nursing home company and a conservative talk radio station. His grandparents were successful real estate developers in the 70s and the 80s. His cousin Nino Mangione is a Republican state legislator in Maryland. Mangione went to a private all-boys high school in Baltimore, apparently a fairly expensive one. He graduated valedictorian in 2016. This is called the Gilman School. He then went to the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school, where he got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in computer science. After graduating, he was a data engineer at TrueCar, a website that buys and sells cars. He stopped working there sometime in 2022 or 2023. He then lived at some sort of surfing community in Hawaii called Surf Break. And this appears to be when things got weird. He left that community due to a back injury, according to a woman who knew him there, and said that this back injury worsened from surfing and hiking. Mangione, his friends say that he then had surgery on his back. And there's this circulating X-ray image believed to be from Mangione that shows a spine with a bunch of screws in the lower portion of it. One of his roommates, speaking with media, or former roommates, is telling the New York Times that Mangione's injury left him unable to be physically intimate, if you know what I mean.
You want to do it now? I'd love to do it right now.
This roommate says the injury was so severe, he had a lower vertebrae that was a half-inch off, and it would pinch a nerve, apparently. So again, Mangione has some kind of a back injury, and he's bedridden, unable to perform basic functions frequently, or do all the things that he wants to do. And again, there's no identified connection between this injury and United Healthcare, at least yet. Did United Healthcare pay for this surgery, the one with the screws? Unknown. Did United Healthcare make him go to a particular provider for maybe this surgery or for some treatment related to that injury? Unknown. Did United Healthcare refuse to cover treatment related to that injury? Unknown. And what's even more bizarre is this guy, Mangione, comes from a fairly wealthy family, at least it appears. And so regardless of his grievances with the healthcare system, did his family refuse to help him with treatment? If so, why? Or maybe they just lost contact, and that's what it sounds like. Mangione apparently disappeared from everyone leading up to this event for several months. Something like 6 months ago, just disappeared. In court on Monday, Mangione said to the judge that he had not had contact with friends or family recently. He couldn't even provide the judge with an address. He gave the judge his childhood home address. Then he was pressed. He gave a Hawaii address as his most recent. But again, that was months ago. Where he's been since is unclear. A family member says that he contacted Mangione and a few months ago, or attempted to contact Mangione a few months ago, because they were telling him, we're trying to track you down. Plus, friends were trying unsuccessfully to contact him on social media. One reached out in October telling Luigi that nobody's heard from you. People are looking for you. He didn't respond. Another wrote in July about commitments to a wedding that apparently Luigi had made. And the person was seeking clarification. Hey man, you in for my wedding or not? No response from Luigi on that one either. So really, this whole thing just ends up being a very bizarre picture, or a very bizarre situation. Wealthy kid, very connected kid, high achieving, highly educated, working, has a good job situation, suddenly becomes a murderous commie, even though he probably had the resources to get what he needed. And just think of all the oddities here. Number one, arrest in plain sight at McDonald's with a manifesto and the murder gun on him. As the meme says, gee, I sure hope no one sees me eating my burger in this conspicuous public location, and then finds the manifesto and the gun I'm carrying. The oddity, the mystery of the disappearance. Nobody knowing what happened to him. You got a whole breakdown in this 4chan post. He had this amazing life of wealth and accomplishments and opportunity. No signs of instability or criminality or problems at all. Disappears for a few months, comes back to murder a CEO. And in court, he himself can't even explain what happened to him or where he's been living. And I don't like to get too tinfoily and indulge in image comparisons, but I am curious what happened to the unibrow. The prison photo and the surveillance photo from his antics in New York, they don't really look like the same guy. Now, of course, different cameras, different angles can often make the same person look very different. But man, this one does seem especially strange to me. It's not just this one image, of course. I'm talking about the circumstances of the guy's life, the seeming disparity between these images, a combination of things. Now, if this was some weird setup, like Mangione isn't actually the killer, as maybe he was screaming about when he was entering the courthouse yesterday, now his lawyer would be able to show that very easily. Hey, here's an alibi for what Luigi was doing that morning. He wasn't there. You got the wrong guy. So far, they're not providing that. So that's a hole in the tinfoil. But man, with as crazy a year as this has been, if some big powerful person needed Brian Thompson, the UHC CEO, whacked, and Mangione is just some weird drugged out guy who's been up to God knows what for the last few months, he's the fall guy, or he got put up to the task for whatever reason. Even if that was true, I'd still say, well, maybe that's in the top 10 craziest things that happened this year. But beyond the oddities of the Luigi Mangione story, at least as told, there's also the reaction to Mangione's gun. Contrary to earlier reports, this was not some exotic World War II era assassination gun that required manual cycling, as was reported and as was discussed last stream.
You are fake news. Very fake news.
This was simply a 3D printed Glock. So for people to understand what that means, that doesn't mean that the entire gun was 3D printed. This is the gun, this image here is the gun that authorities recovered on Mangione's person when he was arrested. So it's hard to see without, this is a pretty low resolution image, without evaluating it more closely. It's hard to know for sure that's what this is, but let's take their description as true, that this is a 3D printed Glock. It doesn't mean every piece on the gun is 3D printed. It means the lower portion of the gun, the frame, the piece that you grip when you shoot it, that is 3D printed. Now, on a Glock that you buy at a store from the factory, that would be molded plastic. The frame, though, is legally considered the gun. The rest of the parts are not. So if you print that frame yourself at home with a 3D printer, and then you buy the rest of the parts and you assemble it yourself, you have made your own gun at home. And that gun has no serial number on it to track it. That's fine legally. That's actually the point. You've made a gun at home. It's your right to do that. As long as you don't make it to give it to somebody else, as long as you don't make it to sell, that sort of stuff. If you make it yourself for your own personal use, that is perfectly legal federally. Some states have their own laws, including New York, which could become an issue in this case. But in general, Americans have had the right to make their own guns for the entire history of the country, and that's all that's happening with these 3D printed guns. It's just another mechanism of doing that. That would also, if that is what happened here, that would also explain why the gun appeared not to function properly or reliably. It is a mix of parts. It is an imprecise or a flimsy frame. It is not factory tested, so perhaps it doesn't work particularly well. But it worked well enough, apparently. But again, it is perfectly legal to build your own guns in this way, at least federally. Again, New York has their own law against unserialized guns. Could become an issue in this case. It's also unclear if Mangione made this gun himself or if someone else made it for him. If it was in fact transferred, someone else made it, gave it to him, sold it to him, that could potentially be another legal problem. And that's where federal law could come into play on this gun as well. But in general, no, do not let the propaganda fool you. There's nothing illegal about building your own gun for your own use. We have always enjoyed that right as Americans, no matter what scary title they give that kind of gun or that particular practice. In this case, of course, it's ghost guns. Yesterday morning, NBC had former FBI agent Frank Figliuzzi on to say that ghost guns, oh man, ghost guns are such a big problem, and it's a federal crime to possess them.
I'm really using this opportunity to make people more aware of the problem of ghost guns. And look, a federal violation, a state violation, they used that to grab and detain him in Pennsylvania. But the problem in our society is those ghost guns are turning up more and more at the scene of violent crimes. They can't be traced. You can make them on a 3D printer very easily. It's a problem.
Okay, it is not a federal violation to make your own gun for your own use, including by 3D printer. That is a lie. They just want to make you believe that you don't have that right to make your own guns. You do. Regardless, though, that's actually irrelevant in this case. Now, why would a criminal be attracted to an unserialized gun? Well, because generally they can't buy guns the normal way, as in at a dealer, because they're going to be subjected to an FBI background check that they can't pass, and so the transaction is not going to happen. But Mangione didn't have that obstacle. Mangione had no criminal record as far as we're aware. He was not diagnosed with mental illness. He was not a known drug abuser, meaning he was not a prohibited person as far as federal law is concerned, meaning he could walk into any gun dealer and buy a gun in the state in which he's eligible, of course. But he had there was nothing blocking him from buying a gun the quote-unquote normal way. So what difference does it make in this case if Mangione walks into the sporting goods store and buys a Glock, or if he 3D prints a Glock frame and constructs the Glock himself? The irony is his ghost gun, if that is what it was, a 3D printed Glock, that was probably actually less deadly than, say, a factory Glock from any store would be, because it doesn't look like his 3D printed ghost gun Glock actually functioned particularly well. Now, again, it functioned well enough, but I'm saying it didn't appear to function well enough to cycle as that gun should. It had problems. He kept having to clear it. So, we're warning about the danger of ghost guns. If he had a factory Glock, he would have been firing more easily and more rapidly. But never miss a great opportunity to propagandize Americans against their own gun rights, of course, which is the point here. The irony, too, beyond the fact that if he had a factory Glock, it probably would have worked better for him. Luigi Mangione is not a reason to surrender your gun rights. He is a reason to arm yourself. He is a reason to exercise your gun rights, because you never know what kind of lunatic could threaten or kill you or your family on the street in exactly this way at any moment. So we'll see how the saga of Luigi continues, but for now we'll move on to Daniel Penny, because in other major news on Monday, Daniel Penny was very quickly acquitted in the morning. And this, of course, is the Marine chokehold on the subway case. Now, I say quickly. Now, there were many days of deliberation before that, but I mean on Monday it was quickly. And the way that this happened after the developments from Friday, I found to be kind of odd. Remember, as discussed on Sunday, what happened in court on Friday. The jury was deadlocked on the higher charge of manslaughter. So prosecutors asked the judge to drop that charge, that higher charge, so that the jury could move on to the lower charge, which was criminally negligent homicide. Now, there was some legal question about whether you can actually do that, as in drop a higher charge to move on to a lower charge, because as far as I understand the law in New York and the common practice, the jury can't move on to the lower charge until they acquit on the higher charge. They did not acquit on the higher charge. They were just stuck, meaning at least one juror, potentially more, believed that he was guilty of manslaughter. But very quickly on Monday morning, the jury came back with an acquittal on the lower charge. So the judge dismissed the higher charge, legally questionable move, sent them back to deliberate. They come back pretty quickly with an acquittal on the lower charge. So that's the result we get. Higher charge dismissed, lower charge acquitted. Daniel Penny is a free man. And I don't really understand the jury's thinking here. Maybe it was less about the law and more just, annoyance with how the case was proceeding, or a desire to go home, or somebody got forceful in the deliberation room or something. But on the philosophy, on the law, on the evaluation, if you think that he's guilty of manslaughter, and again, there must have been at least one member of the jury who did, that's why they were deadlocked, how do you then think he's innocent of criminally negligent homicide, since that is a lower standard? But again, more likely than not, it wasn't that evaluation that changed the mind of that person or that group of people. Maybe they're just annoyed that the judge had sent them back or something like that. Whatever, I want to go home. And that was the deciding factor. But whatever the reasoning, Daniel Penny is now a free man, and he went on Fox News with Judge Janine, and he confirmed that he is the guy that he seemed to be. I know before he had released a video in which he defended himself, a pre-recorded statement. As far as I'm aware, he's not done any interview throughout the duration of this case, and this was his first back and forth interview since the events of that day in May of 2023. And he said he doesn't enjoy the attention. He doesn't want the attention, but he has no regrets, because if he had let Jordan Neely follow through on his threats to hurt people, he would have regretted that non-intervention for the rest of his life.
I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. And like, this type of thing is very uncomfortable. All this attention and limelight is very uncomfortable. And I would prefer without it. I didn't want any type of attention or praise, and I still don't. Mm-hmm. The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take $1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
Good man. And actually, I really wish he would have asserted himself more in that interview and called out the people who dragged him through all of this bullshit over the last year and a half. But he strikes me as a very humble man. That's also important. Of course, I hope he gets his life back. I wonder if he can do that in New York. Probably wise to get the hell out of New York. I would think maybe he leaves. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe the world is healing and he'll be recognized and appreciated and celebrated. But then again, as we've seen on the streets of New York over the course of the last week, all it takes is one. Even if most people appreciate and respect Daniel Penny, all it takes is one lunatic and you have a major problem. But apparently he's not intimidated because Daniel Penny actually went straight to the bar. He was out at some sort of drinking establishment in Lower Manhattan with his lawyers, and they were all celebrating, and Penny didn't say much in this public setting. He let his lawyers do the talking.
How you feeling?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
He's feeling good. He's feeling good. He's feeling good.
What's up?
We're
Come together.
bad.
How's it going? How's it feel?
Feels great. He's finally got the justice he's deserved.
And why do you think it was not guilty?
That's him. That's that guy.
Well, he's not guilty on a few different reasons. Because his actions were justified. He was trying to help people on that train, and he did. And number two, he's not responsible for the death because the death was caused by a lot of other factors that we tried to present with a lot of clarity, such as the K2 abuse and the sickling crisis, and cardiac issues. Not to mention the paranoid schizophrenia, which only added to that impact. So I'm just glad that the jury was able to truly evaluate that as a potential cause of death, and that Danny was justified in the actions that he took.
So yes, just so we're clear, an Italian got caught because he couldn't resist flirting with a hotel receptionist. And an Irishman celebrated his acquittal by immediately going to the bar. As the top reply says, nature is healing. Stereotypes are reasserting themselves. But hey, speaking of stereotypes asserting themselves, how about the stereotypes that never left? Angry Black Lives Matter activists, which of course there were outside of the courthouse reacting to the Penny acquittal. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter New York, Hawk Newsom is his name, he called for black vigilantes to take action for justice.
It's like everybody else has vigilantes. We need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Yes, all Jordan Neely did was be loud on the subway. That was it. On the topic of black vigilantes, though, I assure you there are plenty of black vigilantes using violent tactics. Consult Baltimore, consult Chicago, I'm sure consult New York. There are no shortage of vigilantes of color exacting justice upon others of color. But that commentary was actually comparably sane compared to Shanova Newsom. I don't know how to say her name. I'm going with Shanova. This is Hawk's sister, another co-founder of Black Lives Matter New York. I can't even summarize how many pieces of insanity are in her reaction, but she ends it with "goddamn the jury" and "goddamn America."
I'm the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Greater New York, and I'm a devout Christian. And in my Bible, thou shalt not kill. My heart bleeds for the Neely family. My heart bleeds for his father, who sat in front of me every single day and prayed for justice for his son. There is no one coming to save black people, or else we wouldn't live in these ghettos. We wouldn't be in these prisons. We would be further along than we are. We wouldn't be at the absolute bottom. Once we saw those non-white jurors, we knew that this case was over.
9 of them.
Non-white jurors. How could there not be an uproar that the same person who got off Kyle Rittenhouse, who got off O.J. Simpson, was used here? The only crime that Jordan Neely was guilty of was the color of his skin.
Come on.
These wonderful white people, I hope they celebrate their Christmas while the Neely family is praying and asking God for comfort. Goddamn them. And goddamn America.
out of here.
Go back to where you came from, okay?
I'm actually very encouraged by the weak applause for that commentary. It looks like it was mostly just Hawk behind her. To the point. Yes, every Christian knows that the Bible commands you to get murdered by a mentally ill drug addict. If he wants to kill you, if he wants to threaten you, if he wants to be violent with you, you have to let him, because thou shalt not kill. And of course, anyone who has spent 5 seconds studying or considering the commandment academically, or anybody who thinks about it critically for 5 seconds, you know it translates to you shouldn't murder. Not just kill. You shouldn't murder. And Daniel Penny did not murder, which is why he wasn't even charged with murder. Jordan Neely's dad prayed for justice all throughout the trial. Well, too bad he didn't pray for his son during his life. You know what real justice would have been? For that dad to show up 5 years ago. He didn't. Oh, there's nobody coming for black people. We have to realize that there's nobody coming to save us. What a dependent victim mentality. Nobody should come for you. You should do it yourself. You should build it yourself, because nobody owes you anything. Stop relying on others to create prosperity for you and get to work making it for yourself. This isn't even something unique to black people. This is good advice for everybody. Don't rely on somebody else to build prosperity for you. Build prosperity yourself. Start saving yourself. Your life will get better once you do. Now, the 9 white jurors, she said, we knew it was over when there were 9 white jurors. That's according to her accounting. She apparently was in the courtroom. Not sure if it's accurate or not. I've seen some different numbers about the racial makeup of the jury, but let's say that she's accurate there. 9 out of how many? 9 of 12? Who were the other 3? Were they black jurors, as I've seen reported elsewhere? And if they were black, how were they also persuaded of Daniel Penny's innocence? Are they also racist? These 3 black jurors who apparently were persuaded to acquit Daniel Penny. And by the way, if there were 3 black jurors, which again I've seen claimed elsewhere, I've seen 4. Some people say 4 racial minority jurors, but there were 3 black people on the jury out of 12. That would be over-representation demographically. Manhattan's about 16% black. 3 out of 12, if that's what happened here, 3 black jurors on a jury of 12, that would be a quarter. That would be 25%. So it looks like black people were overrepresented on this jury, not shut out of this jury. She talks about O.J. Simpson there. I'm confused. Did she actually want O.J. to be convicted? Is she mad that O.J. was acquitted? I can't believe they brought in the guy who got O.J. off. That's just surprising to me. That's the implication. She's mad that O.J. got away with it. Okay, totally irrelevant to this case regardless. Jordan Neely's only crime was being black. Now, even if you disregard this case, that is absolutely not true. He punched the elderly in the face. He was kidnapping people. He had a warrant out for his arrest at the time. His only crime was much more than being black. And I hope they have a terrible Christmas. Or she said, I hope they have a nice Christmas, the jury, sarcastically. But why should they have a bad Christmas? They were called upon to do their civic duty. They did it. They deserve a nice Christmas. They should enjoy their time at home with family. You're a lunatic if you think they only deserve that if they do your bidding. But she brought up Jordan Neely's dad. Speaking of Jordan Neely's dad, he was there too. Remember, he showed up 5 seconds ago to collect a check on his son's dead body through a lawsuit against Daniel Penny. And this after abandoning his son while he was a drug-addicted hobo attacking people. So Jordan Neely's dad...
I'm a co-founder of Black Lives Matter.
Jordan Neely's dad, his name is Andre Zachary. He said this outcome is proof the system is rigged.
I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. I had enough of this. The system is rigged. Come on, people. Let's do something about this.
Wow, what a thoughtful inspirational thing to say. Come on, let's do something about this in the most generic, undefined way possible. Oh, I miss my son, which is why I left him for most of his adult life. I left him for many, many years. But I miss him so much. Well, you could have done something about missing him. You didn't. And the truth is, the only thing rigged here is the life of his son by his father abandoning him. There is no action worse for the future of a kid than the abandonment of his father, or the abandonment of his parents in general, other than killing that kid. But, of course, it's the same trajectory. The kid ends up dead in large part because of his father's abandonment. But yeah, it's everyone else's fault. It's society's fault generally. It's not this guy's fault for being a deadbeat. Some insurance company owes him a payout. Now, Shinova Newsom, again, that Black Lives Matter New York co-founder, the Goddamn America lady, she also appeared on Dan Abrams' show on News Nation. And she said that black hair was not allowed on the jury, as in the hair of black people. She said if the lawyers saw the defense team when they were doing jury selection, if they saw any black people hair, they kicked them out. Now, the recording of this segment was it's kind of glitchy. Sorry for that. It's just the way it is.
Diverse Manhattan jury. Why is well? It was 4 people of color. That's known typically as
there during jury selection.
Whether it was
black women were shut out for having unconventional hair, but there were 9 white jurors.
Sorry, is that what they said? They said it was for unconventional hair. Or you're just presuming that
it was unconventional hair.
A juror was dismissed for having unconventional hair.
Unconventional hair.
That's made up.
No, it's not.
Who said? Which lawyer said that?
The defense attorney.
Which one? He said what?
He said that she had unconventional hair because her hair was purple, that she would have unconventional thoughts.
And the notion that she's being dismissed because of her hair, I assume you're assuming it's because of her race, right?
It absolutely was about weight.
Right. Why did the jury acquit? Is it because they're racist?
America is inherently biased.
So the jury is racist.
Have you seen the
I'm asking you a question. No, don't change the subject. Is it because the jury is racist?
The clip cuts off there, but she does say yes. Yeah, it's because the black jurors on the jury, they're racist. Goddamn them too. Apparently they should also have a terrible Christmas, says this devout Christian theologian. But if there is anything to be encouraged by here, in addition to the penny acquittal, again, the proper course of action here would have been no trial in the first place, but the penny acquittal is relatively encouraging. If there's another piece of encouragement, it's the fact that that the Black Lives Matter reaction, at least from what I've seen, has been incredibly weak and lame. Lame marching, poorly attended, actually mostly peaceful, unironically. There's no real damage, but it's not because they've had some change of heart. It's because nobody was really there. It really looks like Black Lives Matter overplayed their hand, 2020, George Floyd, all the rest. Everybody's kind of tired of it. What they're selling is not popular anymore. So go home. The movement is dead. But maybe Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez can re-inspire some of that Black Lives Matter magic, though, because she was asked about the trial outcome this week, and she says, we have to hold Daniel Penny accountable because he may go on his ruthless attack again.
That tells us everything. If we do not want violence on our subways, and the point of our justice system is a level of accountability to prevent a person who does not have remorse about taking another person's life. I mean, even people who have engaged in manslaughter or have taken a life accidentally express remorse. And so the fact that a person may express no remorse indicates that there's a risk that it may happen again. And if we do not want to unleash that level of violence, then we should exert a level of accountability to prevent that from happening again.
Well, why would he be remorseful for doing nothing wrong? Why would he be remorseful for helping other people in distress? Now, it is regrettable that somebody died. I think Daniel Penny would agree with that premise. In fact, I think he does in some of his interview commentary. He's not happy about that, but who killed Jordan Neely? Jordan Neely killed himself with threats against others, with hostility against others, with attacks against others. I know he wasn't physically violent. In this particular case, he was only threatening to be, but he's been physically violent plenty of times before. This guy was on a crash course of destiny with death based on his own behavior, based on his mental condition, based on his drug abuse. And if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is serious about saying that Daniel Penny represents a threat to public safety if he is not held accountable, I challenge her. I guess she works in D.C. in Congress, so we'd have to figure out the time. But once a day, when she's in New York, she has to go to a certain destination. And on the ride to that destination, she rides with Daniel Penny and Daniel Penny alone. Just those two, and we'll see how her safety does. On the way back, she has to ride in a car full of deranged, drug-addicted, mentally ill New York City hobos. And let's see what her assessment of the safety inside those cars actually is, if she's serious about this commentary. I would but make it a live stream. I would love to tune in. And besides, they actually got justice against Daniel Penny with this art depiction. Daniel Penny has already paid the price with how this courtroom artist portrayed him in the sketches. Have you seen this pencil neck? Move over, Adam Schiff, because there is a new giraffe in town.
Jeez.
This is dirty. It is right up there with Tom Brady from 2015 and Diddy. But this isn't Diddy recently. This is Diddy in like 1999 or something. Diddy probably deserved this depiction in all likelihood, but I don't think Daniel Penny deserved that. That is really rough treatment. All right, I know I'm at the top of the hour. I will get to your chats and calls momentarily, but there is one piece of news I wanted to discuss before I get into calls, and that's the ongoing bankruptcy proceedings over at InfoWars. Now, recall the company is being sold off after the Sandy Hook lawsuit judgment that says Alex Jones and the company, or the company specifically, owes the families a million, bajillion, gorillion, whatever dollars.
$200 billion.
Since InfoWars and Alex Jones don't have that kind of money, there was an auction by a court-appointed trustee to sell the company to pay off those families. Well, last month, The Onion was named the winner of that auction. And The Onion planned to shut down InfoWars or take control of the website and all of the property and rebuild the website with their own content. The Onion also wanted to make Everytown for Gun Safety, the gun control advocacy group, the exclusive advertiser on the site, which they think is hilarious, I'm sure. It actually will end the website because it will be completely lame, but maybe that's the intent. I don't know. On Tuesday, though, the judge in this bankruptcy case rejected the deal, saying it's not enough money. The judge has now sent the decision for what to do next to the trustee of the case. His name is Christopher Wray, and he oversaw that auction that resulted in what was supposed to be a sale to The Onion. Now, The Onion had apparently bid $1.75 million in cash, plus a non-cash pledge. Some of the bankruptcy, something related to the bankruptcy case creditors. There was additional value in the bid beyond just the cash. Now, some of the Sandy Hook families partnered with The Onion on this bid. It seems, I don't know how bankruptcy proceedings and defamation payouts and all that play out. I'm not an expert in that. That does seem kind of corrupt to me, though. Hey, we're going to bring a defamation lawsuit against you for a preposterously massive sum. So we're going to compel the sale of your assets, and we're going to collect on the money that the company that we're working with pays you forcibly to go through with this sale. Anyway, the trustee said the actual value of the Onion bid that was momentarily the winner was about $7 million when you consider the value of everything else in addition to the cash. Unclear what the value of the company is believed to be. I didn't see that in the reporting. But the judge said the process didn't give a rival bidder a chance for a counteroffer, which could have brought in more money. And remember, pursuant to the judgment, they have an obligation to get the most money out of the company, out of Alex Jones, to give to those families. But apparently there was another offer from a company that is an ally of Alex Jones called First United American Companies, and that bid was at $3.5 million. It doesn't specify if that's all cash or what the nature of that bid is, but at least compared to the cash, that would be a higher offer. Whatever's happening here, the Onion's deal is off. The Onion says it's still interested in buying InfoWars. The process is going to have to start again, though. Whoever does win the auction will own the company, and that includes the studio, the website, and social media accounts. But bottom line, InfoWars continues for the moment.
Kyle Hitler, baby.
Yeah.
This is lit.
You'll get a little more Alex Jones for the foreseeable future. All right. Before I hop into the calls, let me catch up with some Super Chat so I don't leave you guys hanging like I did last week. Over on YouTube and Tippy, and by the way, callers, sit tight. I'll be with you in just a moment. Joshy Boy says, I might change my race to other just to disassociate. Is it disassociate or dissociate? I don't know. Just to remove myself from my own community. Can I say that, Raja? Am I allowed to disown my own kind? Well, you didn't specify the kind, so you can be an honorary White for the purposes of this Super Chat, and I'm sure Raja Mohan will allow it. Thank you, Joshy Boy. Injured Guardian says, as of December 5th, 24, both Spike and Matt Cohen have accepted, both Matt and Spike Cohen have accepted Christ. 2028 will be awesome. P.S. Considerable USA healthcare spending is for cosmetic stuff. I hadn't thought of that, too. That's probably also true. That skews the math a lot. P.P.S. Read Acts 24 yet. You know, I should know exactly chapter-wise or like where we are in Acts. We're taking a break in Bible study, and we're coming back in the new year. Let me tell you where we left off, because I don't know the exact... we left off in... What was it? Acts 18:18 through 19:10. So not quite to what you're talking about, but it should be coming up soon. But yeah, it's going to be a great year. I have some more things I have planned, faith and church and all that stuff for the new year. So stand by for that. And thank you, Injured Guardian. And I don't know Spike Cohen much, although isn't he the guy who debated David Hogg? Isn't that the guy? That was interesting to watch. Yeah, that's the guy. Good for him. Aggie Jet Pilot says, from the beginning, I figured I was too well timed. This was too well timed, and the suspect and evidence are too conveniently packaged, like the scene in Minority Report with the pictures. Yeah, this about Luigi. Something about it is weird. I'm not even saying like it's all fake, it's all a setup, he's not the guy, but it's very weird for someone who comes from a wealthy family, who is high achieving academically and professionally, to just disappear from everybody, including his own family, for several months, and then show up out of the blue and assassinate a large company CEO on the streets on camera. I mean, it's obviously possible. It is what it appears to be, but you got to have some questions about that for sure. Daniel Yeager says, who's the boomer, or where's the boomer with the good aim when you need him? Well, which boomer is this? And what good aim are you talking about? I don't know the reference, actually. I'm sorry. Tortuga says, so you finally got a shirt and you didn't even adjust the noise gate? Tisk, tisk, tisk. I do have the noise gate on. Why? Are you getting noise gate? Or are you getting noise? It should be good. Or let me know what you're hearing. If it's getting cut off or if there's noise coming through, let me know, because of course I want pristine quality. So I guess I'll have to take a second look at it. Thank you, sir. Over on Rumble, Mr. GR. Hey, punk ass. Oh, Rigger. Thank you, Rigger. I meant to say ATF agent video last week, not DEA agent video. I'm going to have to start calling you a subway rider or whatever the article said. Well, I can't remember what we were talking about. What was the ATF agent video about? Or was this the one you were telling me to look up, but I didn't necessarily know? I guess we'll have to clarify once more. I don't necessarily know the reference.
Definitely worth checking into.
Dangerous Spaces, our call screener, who's supposed to be on vacation but is still here for some reason. Is it stupid that I feel kind of bad for outright missing my first shows in 3.5-ish years? Please, I don't get to properly hang out with the audience, or plus I don't get to properly hang out with the audience. Hope everyone is doing awesome. Thank you, Dangerous Spaces. Hope your vacation is going well. All the best to your family. We're good on D-Live. Odyssey Blankets, thanks for supporting the show. Says, what are the chances of Canada becoming part of the U.S.? 0. Not going to happen. They'll hold out forever. But I like the Trump jokes about it. It is funny. Okay, we got some callers here. Okay, since very few were early, I'm just going to go in order, guys, and I'll see how many I can get to before the top of the hour, and we'll go from there. But before I do that, actually, I confess, I do need a pee break. So I know it's unprofessional, but, biological functions, got to do what I got to do. So stand by for just a moment. I'll be right back to take your calls. All right, Rusty Culture, are you there, sir?
I am here.
What's on your mind?
I was looking at the topics, and one I came across earlier when you were discussing the election. There was something I was interested in your take, because I heard something you said, and I was a little... I kind of disagreed with you a little bit when you mentioned a couple weeks ago that Trump is uniquely hated for Republican candidates.
I think that, well, let me explain what I mean by that. Do I think that, that he is uniquely smeared? Maybe not, as in, like, you could put in any Republican and they'll still say, like, he's Hitler and he's this guy or that guy. What I mean is the motivation to vote against him is extremely high, but I also mean the efforts attempted to take him down, especially on the legal front, are uniquely high.
Okay. I can see that. I'd probably say that those tactics were always in place, but they'd never had to pull the trigger on them, because just looking back at previous Republican candidates and presidents, each one is progressively worse than the last one, and the last one isn't so bad now that we're looking at the new one.
To your point, do I expect to hear in 4 years' time, 8 years' time, oh man, I miss the days of Trump. I disagreed with him, but I really respected him as a man. He's not like this new Nazi that they're running now. Yeah, you're going to hear that. I will grant that point for sure.
We do have a perfect point that they were so happy that Dick Cheney was sitting there and stumping for Kamala Harris.
Of all the strategic oddities of the Democrats in this last election cycle, intentionally using Liz Cheney, I don't understand at all. I know that she's sort of celebrated for that reason, for hating Trump, but I don't think that she is an active sell. She's not persuading anybody to vote for Kamala or vote against Trump. How many votes did Liz Cheney pull? I would be confident in guessing 0. In fact, I would guess the opposite. I would guess that she cost Democrats votes. So it's not surprising to me that Liz Cheney came out and said, hey, I hate Trump too, just so you know. Yeah, we know that. What is surprising to me is that the Kamala campaign and Democrats generally decided to deploy her. They thought she was an asset. I don't understand that move at all. Never will.
I was actually talking about how they had her dad, Dick Cheney, who was the devil, as coming out for Kamala Harris. And you're like, really? What are we doing here? Because looking back I think Trump was a response when the milquetoast, boring candidate of Mitt Romney was called Hitler and Nazi and all the same things. And I think it was people were just really tired of it. And it's like, here's a guy that says he's not going to put up with it. And he's just going to take them at all their insults, all their barbs, and just push back on them every time.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just wonder, people have speculated, it's not necessarily my original thought, but I do think about it a lot. Was there ever a serious intent to win from the Democrat standpoint in 2024? Or was it all just like going through the motions and the campaign was just a giant money laundering op? That they went through $1.5 billion or however many dollars just to put it in the hands they wanted to have that money while giving the appearance of running a serious campaign. I don't know. Everything about it was so odd, from the way they treated Joe Biden to the way that Joe Biden seemingly endorsed Kamala Harris. To this day, I tend to believe he endorsed her for revenge reasons. Nancy Pelosi said that they intended to have an open primary, some kind of blitz primary going into the convention. They didn't intend to just anoint Kamala Harris in the way that they did, because Kamala Harris is a terrible candidate. Everyone hates her. Even many Democrats hate her. The way that happened was Joe Biden endorsed her, but after he issued his resignation statement. It was so weird that he issued his resignation statement and there was no endorsement of anybody, let alone Kamala, in the statement. And then a couple hours later, he came out, oh, yeah, Kamala will be great. Why?
I'm going to put on a little tinfoil hat. I don't think he put out that statement. The first one.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Someone wrote it, but when I say Biden, I mean like him and his people, and especially Jill. Did you see Jill out there, was it today or yesterday, seemingly mocking Kamala with all the joy stuff? You know that Jill hates Kamala, which she should. Kamala Harris called her husband a racist and is in position to usurp her husband's role as candidate and potentially president. So I'm not even saying it's weird or bad that she hates Kamala. Every sane person does, whether Jill Biden is a sane person or not. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was the whole thing was like a Jill op.
That's where I really see that he wouldn't have given up powers, because Jill would not let him. I mean, she's been holding him up through this entire thing. It's like that. Looking at Biden, he's crazy, demented. He's not good for the job. He's a pretty evil guy when you look back at his history. But the amount of elder abuse and just latching onto power that Jill Biden did by keeping him there, when anybody that looked at him for more than 5 minutes can see this guy is not anywhere possibly able to do anything close to this. It's kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, I don't know. It will forever be a mystery to me. But thank you for the call, man. Do you have any closing thoughts before I let you go?
I did have one closing thought. Don't know if you saw it. Kind of a big topic last week. Saw headlines out of the UK about them banning puberty blockers for under 18s.
This was referenced or at least varying policy in Europe was referenced during the Supreme Court hearing. And I don't know what the policy in the UK is, but the point that Alito and other justices were making is that a lot of European countries are going back on the hormone or surgical gender interventions for kids. So what the policy changes, they're not doing it? Is that what you're talking about? They're done?
Yeah, they come out and headline from The Guardian, puberty blockers to be banned indefinitely for under 18s across the UK.
Wow, how hateful of them.
I know. Not very progressive and loving.
Well, good. Yeah, that's a step in the right direction. Thank you for the information. I hadn't heard that.
Well, glad to help.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, Ratchet Republican is up next. Mr. Ratchet Republican, what's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the the healthcare debate because of this tragic assassination of this healthcare CEO. And one of the questions I want to ask these people who are trashing the American healthcare system is, what are you comparing it to? Compared to what? You know, people tend to compare it to the Nordic countries of socialized healthcare. And the Nordic countries do not have, it's comparing apples to oranges, because these Nordic countries have a smaller population and their populations tend to be more healthy. They have lower obesity levels, so they tend to not load the healthcare system as we do in our country. And as somebody who has been a recipient of both I've been on Medicaid and I have been on private healthcare, so I have the ability to compare both. And I want to tell the American people that you do not want the federal government rationing out your healthcare. You'd much prefer the private sector doing that than the federal government.
Yeah, and I assume they would say that in that situation, let's say we had a single-payer government-run system in this country, which because services, products, everything in the healthcare sector is governed by the laws of scarcity too. You don't have infinite medical services or infinite medical products, which means some people will get service or care, others may not, which means there will be people living and dying by certain decision making.
Yes.
Okay, so if there are now government bureaucrats in charge of that, I assume they would still say it's also fine to assassinate those people.
Yes,
by the same
exactly.
logic. I'm not trying to smear them. I'm following the reasoning that anyone who denies you care is subject to justified, it's not even assassination at that point, it's justified death sentence by vigilante gun. But when you think about it, the entire philosophy breaks down to the premise that I am owed the services or goods of somebody else at gunpoint. That doctor has the ability to treat me. I am right to point a gun at him and say, you will provide me with medical service. Or that company makes this particular product. I'm right to point a gun at them and say, you will give me that product. You will make that product and give it to me at the price that I determined to be fair. And the price is free insofar as it's paid by someone else. And I know it's I sympathize with people who need healthcare and have trouble getting it. I'm not an evil person like that. I don't enjoy others suffering. But the reality is, there are two realities. Scarcity exists, as in there are only so many people to provide these services and only a certain amount of the goods necessary to provide those services. And the other reality is you don't have a right to compel someone else to provide their labor to you. That is called slavery. Exactly. If you think you own their labor, you think you get to point a gun at them and threaten them to serve you. And those two moral principles are well, one's just a reality, a principle of reality about the world. The other is a moral principle. You can't erase those. And I'm sorry, you can't erase death either. It's coming for all of us. I hope everyone lives as long as possible. But one thing about the left, it's like with the COVID stuff too, and I shouldn't just say the left, because there's a segment of the right. This is like a pretty broad or wide group of people who have varying perspectives about this healthcare CEO. Mm-hmm. But especially in the pandemic time, it seemed like it was a lot of progressive left people. The inability to accept that, death is coming for all of us one day. And yes, you should take precaution. You shouldn't be reckless. Yes, we want to be able to provide as much healthcare to as many people as possible. But there's no mask you can wear. There's no vaccine you can take. There's no amount of free healthcare you can provide that will stop people from dying. That's just the reality of it. Live the best life that you can. Try to do as well as you can. We'll try to make a system that is that provides as much medical care to as many people as we can within the moral constraints of you don't have a right to point a gun at somebody and force them to work for you. But beyond that, I know it sucks, but that's the way the world works. Death is coming for all of us one day.
And that's what I keep saying, compared to what?
Yeah.
So 2 points I want to make. Being on Medicaid, let me tell you something. Every doctor that I went to was, we don't accept Medicaid here. We don't accept Medicaid here. We don't accept Medicaid here. This is something that people don't understand. The federal government does not compensate as well as the private sector. So what will end up happening if the government takes over the medical industry? What will happen? You're going to have a shortage of people to provide services, because everybody's going to move over to the private sector, and you're going to have all these people who are now on the system, loading the system, and you're going to have waiting lists. You're going to have rationing. You're going to have all these things that are going to be 10 times worse than it is now. And two, the private sector, when it comes to the private sector, a lot of people tend to pick the cheapest healthcare possible, the cheapest insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So when you buy the cheapest of insurance, you're not going to get major services done because you chose the cheap insurance. People don't, it's, a lot of the healthcare problems is based on choice. People choose to get the cheapest healthcare. They want to buy the brand new car. They want to buy the brand new car, but then they want to skimp on their insurance. And then when the time comes when they have issues, they want to complain about the healthcare system when it's their choices that has led to their problems.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. The thing about a lot of those healthcare policies too is that it's not even necessarily their choices, because their choices are determined by government requirement. The policy must cover this or that. And the entanglement between the government and private insurers is effectively, they are arms of the government in many ways anyway.
That is true too. But yeah, so when I say compare apples to apples, I think about Canada, and I remember when Steven Crowder did way back when he did a documentary on the Canadian healthcare system and how it was lauded by the Americans about how our system should be, and he was showing how the waiting times for basic services, these are not for major surgeries, for basic healthcare services, the wait times. And then he was told by the people, well, you're better off trying to find some private healthcare to deal with you. And people pay 40 to 50% of their taxes, of their how much they make, into the healthcare system. So
yeah,
I again, no system is perfect. The perfection is the enemy of the good. And I believe that yes, we can make the healthcare services, but I don't believe it's more governmental intervention is the solution. I believe that we need more innovation, like we need more competition, more competition in the services so that people can innovate and make it better.
Yeah, of course. And that's another thing people don't talk about with U.S. costs, whether it's with drugs or all sorts of other medical products or services. This is a country where a lot of those things are developed. And unfortunately, we bear the cost of a lot of that R&D. And so that's just true, too. Like, you can't escape the other economic reality that if you want the highest quality in services or goods, you're going to pay a higher price comparably to things that are of inferior quality elsewhere. And so, yeah, I mean, there is fundamentally a reason why people from across the world who want particular medical treatment generally come to this country. We don't see,
exactly,
except for people getting like cheap cosmetic surgery in Mexico because, it's more expensive here. Generally, if people have they're in need of very specialized or a high quality of care, they're coming from foreign countries to this country, and that's for a reason.
Yes, and I just want to end on this point. There was a Piers Morgan, if you watch the Piers Morgan episode today, they had a panel on the healthcare system, and I want to focus on Brianna Joy. And Brianna Joy is the exact example of this communistic utopian vision where everything must be handed to you by a centralized government. And she said she had no empathy for the CEO because he has cost so many lives. But she doesn't realize that the policies that she promotes has cost just as many lives. through her communistic policies. And the problem is that the policies that she promotes never affects her. She lives in a privileged, a highly educated lifestyle, and healthcare is on her beck and call, police is on her beck and call, and the problems of her policies never affect her. And she's just the exact example of the leftist ideology that believes that anything is justified to get the outcome that they want.
It's always the ivory tower, the perspective from luxury that allows you to become delusional about the natural laws of the world. And I don't know what it is about it that cultivates an attitude of blame in the minds of these people. It's everyone else's fault. It's society's fault. I'm absolved of my own responsibility for the state of my own, whatever.
Same with Daniel Penny, the whole thing. Yeah. It's always society's fault. It's never the fault of the individual. And that brings down a society.
Yeah.
You can't have a society like that.
Well, thank you for the call, man. I appreciate it. And have a great night.
I appreciate it. Same to you.
All right. Next up, we got Tom. Tom, are you there? Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Great.
What's on your mind?
I live in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. How many drones are around you?
Well, I was watching a Fox News clip, and they were showing different video from different towns, and one of them was Delran, which was right next door to me. So I guess I got drones going over my house too.
Have you seen them or just on the news? Have you actually seen them yourself?
Just on the news. Okay. I haven't seen any though. I don't geek out too much, and also we're close to where planes from Philadelphia come over us while they're coming into and out of the airport. So I see a lot of lights flying over my house, and I probably couldn't tell the difference between a drone and an airplane if it was right on top of me.
Have you heard any more information? It's based on what I've read, nobody knows what the hell these are.
The last I heard was now they're denying that it's an Iranian mothership.
Yeah.
So
the Pentagon is denying.
I had originally thought that maybe it was like Tren de Agua was using the drones to fly drugs over New Jersey and then dropping them off somewhere, but that doesn't seem very reasonable when I think about it more.
The cartels, I know Tren de Aragua is a little bit different than the cartels because they're a Venezuelan prison gang, but sort of related. The cartels at the border do use drones, though. They surveil all over the border to try to avoid border agents and to try to scout for how and where to move people. So whether it's Iran, China, potentially cartels, potentially, I don't know, Venezuelan gangs, it wouldn't surprise me at all to learn that it's from some foreign adversary in that way.
Maybe flying over and using, taking all the information about when they fly over and using that to self-program a drone to fly without any guidance from the mothership.
Yeah,
go to a target or something.
Where the hell is that thing? Because that's the difference. It's like if you got cartel guys on the border flying drones across the border, you know where they're operating. They're operating from Mexico. Or maybe on our side of the border, but somewhere in the border vicinity. With these drones, where the hell is that? And I know the claim is some kind of mothership offshore. If that's the case, though, how the hell are we not aware of what is claimed to be an Iranian mothership in our waters or close to our waters offshore? If that's true, that is a stunning failure of our own domestic defense.
I agree. But I will find out more in the next few days. I think somebody's going to shoot one down, or something's going to happen. Something's going to leak.
That reminds me, the Daniel Yeager, your super chat earlier, that's what you were talking about. I had a super chat that said, where's that old boomer with the good aim? He was talking about the drones. I was talking about that guy on Sunday, that old man in Florida who shot at a Walmart delivery drone with with a some kind of 9mm handgun. Yeah, we need that guy. Put him on the Jersey Shore to defend us. Well, did you have any other drone thoughts before I let you go?
Not drone thoughts, but we do have January 6th or whatever the equivalent is this year, January 5th or whatever.
Yeah.
Are there going to be any problems with the electors?
Well, so as I recall, there's something. Isn't there something coming up really soon? Isn't there some kind of congressional meeting that happens before January 6th and the certification? I forget exactly how it happens, but what is the date this year? Because it's not always January 6th is a Monday. When is election certified? Let's see. Inauguration day is January 20th. I already knew that. Wait. Yeah, it says after being certified at the state level, electoral votes can then be counted by Congress in a joint session set for January 6th, 2025. So they are doing it that Monday. January 6th is the day once again.
Okay.
So mark your calendar. Are we going to get a sequel?
No. I don't think even the Democrats would be dumb enough to do something like that.
Oh,
there might be some individuals that are gonna scream to the sky, and there might be some looting, some convenient looting that happens, but overall, I think it's going to go okay.
No, they got something up their sleeves.
I've become friends with school shooters.
I wouldn't be surprised at either.
I shot someone with a gun.
All right. Well, thank you for the call. Don't get droned, okay?
I'll try not to, and I hope you have a good holiday.
You as well. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Take care.
Next up, I got Not a Real Name. Nada, are you there? Hello, sir.
Hello,
or ma'am.
Sir, in this case.
All right. Well, what's on your mind?
Not a real name was just chosen for the pure fun of having not a real name.
All right. I won't tell the feds about you.
Well, I have a slightly less serious topic and a more serious topic today.
That's right. Last time we talked about what proper Christmas practices. That was you, right?
Oh, it could have been. It's been years.
Well, no, this was like the other week. What are you talking about?
Definitely not.
So
the other
it wasn't
week.
you. I'm
Don't
confusing.
necessarily.
I have this embarrassing habit of confusing all my callers. I'm like, oh, hey, it's you, that guy. We talked the other day. I just did this the other week. And the other guy also said, what the hell are you talking about? So my apology. Thank you for calling back after several years.
Not a problem. It's good to be back.
Well, what's on
For
your
the
mind?
less serious topic, what do you think the left is going to do if it turns out that Luigi, what's-his-face, actually killed the United Healthcare CEO because the man catcalled his girlfriend or something, and then just leaned into the vigilante narrative because he thought it would play better with the jury?
I think that they would still stand by. I don't think they care why he killed him. I think they care that he was killed because he's the CEO of this company. And insofar as he was the CEO of this company, I think they're glad that he's dead. So I don't think the reason why matters to them. If it comes out that it is totally unrelated to his executive role, which would be contrary to what Luigi was saying in this manifesto of his, if that is indeed authentic. But I think it could be exactly like you're saying. Oh, you looked at me funny. Oh, you slapped my girlfriend's ass or something. They would still say, don't care, glad he's dead.
I mean, there was clearly some level of preparation. No one carries around a silenced gun with them all the time. I just think it would be funny if the preparation was undertaken for other reasons entirely.
Well, whatever's going on with Luigi, that is a man with something weird happening in his mind. What compels
Most
a guy
definitely.
to disappear in that way, have no contact with all the people in his life, and reappear in this way? Something went haywire. And I'm sure that a debilitating back injury, if that is what's happened here, is maddening. I've never had something like that in my life, but I've had, more minor injuries that limit your mobility, and that can be infuriating. So if it's as bad as people are saying, it could drive you mad. But would it drive you so mad that you would disappear for months at a time and go kill a guy? that version of the motive, which is what's emerging now. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's what we're supposed to believe, but I find that hard to accept at face value.
Same.
Well, do you have any other thoughts before I let you go?
Yes. On a more serious note, where do
Wait,
you
that
think
was
the
a
logical?
joke one? I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah. Maybe not as humorous of a joke as my normal, but
All right.
I'm working on it. On a more serious note, what do you think the logical endpoint of the whole kill a CEO thing is? If their whole rationale is he caused unnecessary deaths due to his billing practices, claim handling practices, where does that end? Because in the healthcare industry, no matter how good you are, you're eventually going to have a bad day or make a bad call, and someone's going to die. This extends all the way up and down the chain from front desk people to the administrators to the surgeons. Should we kill all of them, or who should we kill?
Yeah, I have no idea what the line would be, and I was getting into this a little bit on Sunday because there certainly is a large, to the extent you agree with the injustice of the denied claims explanation, there's a big list of people who are responsible for that, or air quotes responsible, or however you want to characterize it. But yeah, it's not CEO guy or just CEO guy. It's the people writing the policies. It's the people actually making the decisions in the claims department. It's the lawyers who defend those decisions in court. And if you're telling me, if you're asking me to define where they would draw the line, of course I can't because it hasn't been articulated, but I don't think the line matters in their mind. I think it's just pick the villain and go. Obviously it's not about a specific charge with specific evidence and any kind of trial or any kind of evaluation of that evidence. It is just pure mob mentality, pure mob justice. That guy's bad. We get him. So I don't think there is a limit. I think it goes as far down the chain as the mob's hunger wants it to go. I think that's the only limiting factor.
I would pay money to see someone in Congress propose a system for, systematizing this. Trying to set up a sliding scale where you take your moral responsibility per death. So a death caused by a surgeon who showed up drunk would be more than, say, a surgeon who just slipped, times the number of deaths, and then guillotine everyone who falls above an arbitrary line, which is adjusted annually to meet a quota.
Okay.
Oh my God, bro!
Well, it's not that the logic fails, it's that it's too systematic. Okay, these aren't systematic people with rules and order and structure. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. And I don't think we should implement such a system for extremely obvious reasons. However, I hope that it would at least wake some people up to the absurdity of their position.
Yeah, but I think if you actually start examining this stuff, it's driven by pure emotion. And the best defense they have is, but it's righteous emotion. It's righteous anger, and therefore it deserves justice. Okay. Again, the fundamental principle here, as with any justice system, if you believe that life has inherent value, and it does, then we have a moral obligation to make sure that we are limiting or taking away that life and liberty only through the most precise means and the most careful evaluation that we have. It means we expect evidence, we have specific charges, we prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and we offer an opportunity to appeal. Without doing that, if we're just reckless with our justice, we're committing massive injustice ourselves because we don't have respect for the value of that life. We're taking away life either by killing it or by imprisoning it on our whims. Treating ourselves as God as though we are automatically justified to administer that sort of punishment. And I know it. If you're angry, it feels good and you're doing something. But if you're not careful about it, you are committing the worst forms, the biggest evil that you're supposedly fighting against. And that's a problem. You're a bad guy if you're engaging in that kind of behavior.
All right. Because you said it, I'll put away the pitchforks and tiki torches.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you and have a good night.
You as well.
Okay. Egrin is up next. Egrin, are you there?
Hi.
What's on your mind? You'll have to turn off your stream there. but I'm sure you got it.
So on the issues with the drones, if they are a size of a bus that we're talking about, and they don't need to be I don't know whether if they're being gassed by used with gas or electric. That's
Yeah, we
kind of
don't know. We don't know the power source because we don't even know anything about how they operate, as far as I've seen.
Well, have you seen any reports that they've been seeing them for at least more than an hour? If it's more than an hour, if it's the size of a bus, it's definitely not electric.
I don't know. I haven't seen information about duration. I don't know that.
Yeah, we need like a more information on how long are they in the air for how long.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of communications failing right there. Of okay, how big do you think it is? How far is it going? Where is it going? I mean, for all we know, this could be like next gen batteries that we don't know about.
Well, and that's a scary concept. If we're getting out-teched by our adversaries, I'm not really worried seriously about getting out-teched by China and their spy balloons and all their... I mean, they steal good ideas. That's the way they operate. But let's say this is Iranian in the way it's been described, and they have a mothership offshore that...
Wait, what makes it Iranian? What's the information on you?
So this is according to the claim of the congressman from New Jersey. I don't have his name in front of me, but he's the one making that claim today.
Why is he making that claim?
He says that he has sources telling him, and I assume that means sources, say, from within the military or within our coastal defense or within some level of intelligence that are telling him that this is an Iranian op. But to your point, we don't have information that we can evaluate that demonstrates that. We're just relying on this guy says.
Well, and to me, we had more information about the spy drone and not only that, we sent out F-16s to blow it up right away.
Eventually.
Yeah. I understand that it's flying over cities, so it's a lot harder blow it up.
That thing flew over like the whole continent before they took it down. But
yeah, so we're not getting a lot fresh details of what's going on.
Okay, it connected again. Reconnection successful. So
okay, good.
People watching the stream, you should have the connection should be back. Okay, great. There was just a big hiccup for some reason.
Oh, that's odd.
But it is back. Anyway, okay, Ygritte, any final thoughts on the drones before I let you go?
No. Well, nothing on the drones. I would, however, on the Daniel Penny thing, the fact that the prosecutor, Donna Yoren, is saying, quote, no toxicology report result imaginable was going to change my opinion. Toxicology report result imaginable was going to change my opinion.
Yeah.
Even if they showed enough fentanyl to put an elephant down.
Yeah, that was a preposterous statement.
Well, at that point, she should be almost fired by that very statement that you're making because she should almost be fired on that. And the fact that Phil,
her job is to assess the cause of a death, and she's saying, I don't care if you could show me a cause of a death, I wouldn't call it that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's going beyond the thing. Even Philip DeFranco is blatantly ignoring the fact that Neely had a place to live. His father, MIA. Everything about this is...
Oh God! Do I dare ask what Philly D's opinion of this is?
You're a faggot. He basically is just trying to quote a bunch of people, but not really give a clear distinction. And the fact that he's ignoring the 42 arrest and the active warrant that Jordan Neely, he doesn't even show the mugshots that Jordan Neely has. He keeps showing all the pictures of him being just a impersonator, a street, a circus guy.
Just a Michael Jackson impersonator, the best moonwalker in the Big Apple. Yeah.
But that's the thing. The whole thing is fishy as all that. Not only that, you mentioned that the BLM people said that they brought in the people that got OJ off.
Yeah, I don't know if they were referring to a lawyer or an expert witness. I don't know who the connection to OJ was.
Yeah, as far as I know, the lawyers from OJ and the lawyers that Daniel Penny have are completely different.
So it must have been a witness in the trial or something.
That's my best
I would assume,
guess.
but
yeah.
All right, man.
Yep.
Well, thank you for the call. I appreciate it, and have a great night.
Cheers.
All right, next up, are these Chinese characters? Are these Chinese characters? What am I looking at? Is this a Chinese spy op? Is this a Chinese spy balloon? Hello?
Definitely not. Just
okay.
A Chinese person, yes, but not a spy op.
An actual Chinese? Are you in China or where are you?
No, I was born in China, but I grew up in the United States.
How do I say the name?
Usually people just call me Ho, because that's how you pronounce it.
Ho?
Like Ho.
Oh, Ho-Oh. Okay.
Although the name itself is Japanese, so.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Okay, well, what's on your mind?
Well, I don't know. I just feel like talking more about healthcare.
Okay.
But I feel like that's been discussed ad nauseum today, so.
Well, it is the big topic of the week, so if you got some thoughts on it, go ahead.
No, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like there might be some like there are some advantages of like less privatized healthcare systems.
Okay.
That I think sometimes the right doesn't fully acknowledge in the way that they should, to be honest.
Like what?
It's like a lot of like the drug pricing is a lot better in other countries, especially socialized countries. And there's also this additional effect that it seems that in socialized countries, people have better health outcomes, like because of people are less sick. But like you can't necessarily discount the fact that it's possible that like regular access to healthcare could also contribute to people having like lower rates of obesity or better mental health outcomes, for example.
Okay, so let me take these points one by one. On the drug prices. Now, as far as I understand, that is true, that there are lower prices in other countries. As far as I understand, that's through negotiated trade deals in part. The other part that complicates it, though, is those drugs are developed here and we bear the cost. And so how all of those costs get offset in trade deals with other countries and why the cost of research and development stays in large part in the United States, as far as I understand. I'm not exactly sure how all that works out, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm not sure that a government-run system of either developing drugs or distributing drugs would perform better than status quo. There was the point on better health outcomes. Was that your second point?
Better health outcomes due to better preventative care. So I guess that's my second point.
I would have to see, number one, what the outcomes are, and number two, what the explanatory factors are. Now, I don't dispute that healthcare can be a factor in good health outcomes, but I also think that something that is unique about Americans that explains poor health outcomes here is lifestyle choices. We tend to be overweight. We tend to have a lot of problems with substances. Other things that are not healthy are not just our weight, but the quality of the food that we consume. Obviously, I think that if you have a chronic condition, that the quality of healthcare service you receive to manage it is probably a variable that matters there. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm not convinced that the quality of care in the United States is what leads to what could be poor health outcomes compared to other countries. I think that a lot of other countries just live healthier lifestyles would be my guess. This is, shooting from the hip. I can't give you like some study or some scientific analysis on it, but that's my gut reaction. And then what was the third point? I forget.
the points were like preventative care, the preventative. I think it was drug pricing. Wait, now I'm forgetting the third point as well. What was my third point?
Maybe it was just access. I can't remember.
Access to healthcare.
Yeah.
Like,
well, okay. So, is it your view, and I'm not? Is the view that you're expressing that it's easier to walk in and say get primary care in another country than it is here? Is that the premise?
I would say so. Yes, it's probably easier.
And I only have experience in this country, so I can't tell you from firsthand elsewhere. I don't know what it's like to try to walk into a doctor in Europe or walk into a doctor in Asia or something like that.
Like not having to worry about cost when you make healthcare decisions, I think improves like health outcomes. Although
what if the quality is really poor?
I acknowledge your point that like the quality is not necessarily better. But I don't necessarily think the health quality outcomes in a lot of like, for example, Europe or like in like especially Western Europe or like the Nordic countries, they have worse health outcomes, for example.
You're saying they don't or they do? Sorry.
I don't necessarily think they have worse health outcome. Like their quality of care is worse. Like discounting the fact that they live healthier lives as at the individual, but as doctors, I don't necessarily think that doctors provide worse care in like Nordic countries or like Eastern Europe or like, for example, South Korea or Japan as an example.
But if the quality of care is the same, then why would it matter? Like, what would be the benefit of a government-run system if the quality of care is the same?
Mostly because like if people do not have to factor the cost into like healthcare decisions, I think that's like something that like Americans like don't have the luxury of being able to deal with.
Yeah, well, it gets back to our point that we were getting at there. Is the quality the same? Now, I'm asking rhetorically because I don't know. I can't tell you like, oh, our services or our medical care in the U.S. is so much better than it is in Europe or it is in some other region or country. But I don't know. I mean, all I can tell you is like Kamala Harris, I've grown up in a middle-class family. Okay. And I've had the experience of going to get primary care in this country or even going to the ER when I've had certain medical emergencies like the DVT or other things that have hit me or other things in my family. I haven't come from any sort of like extravagant wealth or any sort of special circumstance. And I can tell you that by and large, when I've needed care or when anyone in my family has needed care, we're able to walk into a hospital or a clinic in rural Montana or wherever else, and they'll take care of you and they'll provide a good quality of care. And there are bills associated with that. And sometimes those bills are high, but I guess what I'm saying is I've never felt like access is necessarily a problem. Like, are there considerations that you would have to make about things that are more elective that might cost money that maybe you're not comfortable spending? Sure, I get, but is that this kind of meme that people are being turned away from companies? In my experience, like where I've encountered choices about care to pursue, it's been a decision made with a healthcare provider about what's best in terms of my health and what costs are worth taking on or aren't. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm fighting something of a straw man there. I'm not trying to prop up your point as weaker than it is or something. I'm just saying I don't necessarily grant the premise that access is like this extremely difficult thing in this country, especially considering that we have so many options for people of lesser means. You know, we've got Medicaid, we've got charity care at these hospitals. We have all kinds of nonprofits and charities that are looking to help people with their care. People raise money on GoFundMe. I mean, there are all sorts of ways that people have to obtain care beyond just say out of pocket. And so I don't know. I think that by and large, like where people want care, they are able to obtain it if they're serious about, you know, making difficult choices, strategizing, adjusting their life if needed to achieve it. But It's not that it couldn't be done another way. Obviously, I'm going to be very hesitant to say that it would be better if the government was in charge of making those decisions rather than those individuals and the people providing them care.
I would agree. Like, it's just, I don't necessarily think that like socialized methods in the countries are necessarily worse than like privatized like systems in the United States, for example. It's like it's as if like Americans like believe that like their like privatized system is like some sort of like amazing invention, when in reality it was just because of like what happened during the Great Depression and FDR's policies that we ended up with this like very like, I would say like forced by like the path of history, like hybridized like employer-based system.
Well, that's another question too. Like, just because it's private, and it's kind of air quotes private, because again, the entanglement between the government and even these private insurers or hospitals, providers, all that stuff. The question even beyond that, like, should it be private? Is this model of employers providing insurance a good model? And I don't know the history of how all that came to be. I guess in my head, I imagine that's
generally
just,
argue no.
it's,
I would definitely argue no. Like there's no logical reason that healthcare should be like healthcare should be like tied to your employment.
The only reason I can think, and I would imagine this is partly why it develops, but I don't know. This is just a guess. The only thing I can imagine is that when you pool people together in that way, when you pool that risk, you can usually, it's more leverage with the insurer. It's a bigger bargaining chip. And so if you're looking to get a better deal for people, you pool people in groups, in this case, employees, through the business. I would assume that's why, but there's no reason it has to be that way. And there's got to be, you'd think there'd be a way to group people for efficiency's sake that isn't necessarily tied to an employer. But there's no reason, none of that is by law. That's just the way it's kind of worked out. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I believe the history of like the employer-based system is that during the Great Depression, I believe it was an FDR policy that capped like certain types of income. There was like a caps on income for certain groups of people. So the way that the employers got around to it was by offering healthcare as like an additional way of increasing like compensation provided to their employees.
There probably is a big tax reason. You're right. That would make sense.
So I mean, like, if like that's the reason why you have such a like, if that's the reason why employers are so entangled in the healthcare system, then really like it should not be that way.
Yeah.
Although we've had like 100 years of that, not quite 100 years, 80 years of that history by this point. So it's really not something we can just get away, deal away with easily.
Well, thank you for the call, man. I appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Have a great night. Okay, I am at the top of the hour, but we just have a select few people still looking to get in. So I'm going to see if I can finish out the calls for the evening, and we'll call it a night, but maybe I'll do kind of a blitz round. Adam, are you there?
Hey, Matt. Yes, I'm here.
Well, thank you for calling in. I'm a little bit tight on time, so I might have to be a little quicker with some of these last calls, but what do you got for me?
Oh, my gosh. So I'm in the healthcare field.
Oh, okay. Well,
a lot of opinions.
You've got an hour. Go ahead.
Okay. So I have a sort of tangent and a question, but I just want to address the last caller and talk a little bit about the drug pricing, because I think a lot of the drug pricing actually comes from a lot of kind of shady back-end dealings between the insurance companies. So when you had your DVT, I'm guessing you were put on either Xarelto or Eliquis, right? Something like that. They didn't put you on warfarin.
That's correct. I mean, I think I've said it publicly already. I was on Eliquis, yeah, but I haven't taken it since March.
Yeah, they usually put you on 3 to 6 months of a DOAC.
Yeah,
it's either Xarelto or it's Eliquis, and if you have insurance, it's probably somewhere in the $20 to $60 range.
Yeah,
Eliquis, I think is probably around there.
That's about what I paid. Yeah, and I have. I mean, I don't know. I forget all the terms of my insurance, but I don't. I buy insurance out of pocket because I am my own employer. I'm not self-employed, but I work for a company that I own. And so my bargaining power with this lone man company operation is not very high. And so I buy insurance out of pocket. And the insurance that I have is not, it's not great. you know, but I was happy that the drugs did not end up costing too much.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you didn't have insurance, and I'm looking at GoodRx, it's a place where you basically offer coupons for drugs. You're paying about $600 for a 30-day prescription. And for 3 to 6 months, I mean, you're looking at $1,500 or $3,000 versus $150 or $100. And
that's
so,
we compare the 150 or what's that figure for?
let's say $50 a month for 3 months.
Well, wait, let me just make sure. So that's insured, and you were saying out of pocket would be what? Like if you had no insurance, you had to buy a few months of Eliquis.
Is going to be like $600.
Okay.
Per month.
And then what was the last figure that you cited?
If you have insurance, it's like 50.
Okay.
And if you don't have insurance, it's like 10 times more. It's like 500.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, insurance really isn't meant to be used this way, but you know, they cover a lot of stuff that probably is not going to like break the bank. And so if let's say your doctor puts you on a different medicine, Xarelto, and your insurance company said, whoa, you know, we got to deal with Eliquis over here. We're not going to cover Xarelto. You got to pay for that out of pocket. You're looking at 10 times, you know, the additional cost. And so you're going to go back to your doctor. You're going to be like, hey, you know, this is $600 a month. I can't pay this. And they're going to be like, really? You know, that's crazy. This should only be, you know, $50, $60. And then you're going to go through your insurance company and they're going to say, well, actually we had a deal with Xarelto last year, but now we switched to Eliquis. And then so there's all this, the insurance companies have a deal with the different hospitals, they have a deal with different pharmaceuticals. And so as a physician, it may be difficult for them to know, you know, am I supposed to prescribe this or this? Which is the insurance company going to cover? Which are they not? And then you're fighting with the insurance company because, you know, you can't get a hold of the doctor over the weekend, or maybe you were on Xarelto and you had another DVT and they need to switch you. And meanwhile, you know, weeks are going by and you're wondering, oh my gosh, is this DVT going to become a pulmonary embolus and I'm going to have to go back to the ER? You know, a whole bunch of stuff there. So it's just a lot of Republicans have been pushing for more transparency, which I think is definitely going to help because when...
Wait, so the transparency is what? The deals between the insurance companies and the drug companies, or what's the transparency for?
The transparency would be what is covered and what's not covered. Because if you've been on, let's say, a medicine, lisinopril for high blood pressure or metformin for diabetes, and that's been covered for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden your insurance company says, hey, we made this deal with a different group. Now you need to switch from lisinopril to losartan. And you're like, well, I've been on this medicine works. I don't want to have to switch medicines. You know, you either pay a lot of money for something completely outside of your control, or, you know, you have to switch medicines. And so the transparency would be when you go into the hospital, what is covered, what is not covered, so that you know how much you're going to pay and the doctors know how much you're going to pay. When my wife was pregnant and we were delivering...
So before the administration of any service or drug or anything, they would tell you this is or is not covered by your insurance policy. Is that what you're saying?
Basically,
Okay.
yeah. So when my wife was pregnant, we went in and all through her prenatal appointments, we're saying, hey, how much is this going to be? We got to save up money. And they're saying, well, it's probably going to be somewhere in the range of like $3,000 to $6,000. And we have insurance. Oh, okay. And then we get the bill and it's on that upper end, that $6,000. But you look at the bill and it says, well, the cost of delivering a baby is, you know, $36,000. And I'm like, it's not $36,000. I'm sorry. I can do the math. I know what the anesthesia is getting paid and, you know, the OBGYN and the nurses, you know, I even think that $3,000 to $6,000 is hyperinflated, but, you know, you don't know. You don't know if this is going to be a $2,000 or a $6,000.
I learned
delivery.
my lesson the first time. It was like on the baby, you know, because I'm sure you've had the experience where they try to make you stay longer than you need to, or you know, I'm going in with like an entire camping setup next time because it's like I'm not taking any of. I don't want an aspirin from you guys because I know what you're trying to do here. No, I mean the service that we received for the birth of both of our sons was great, but there's no question that there's like little things they try to do that are clearly for an upcharge effort. That was for sure witnessed.
Yeah, I think that's less on the hospital, and more so our standards of care. So the last caller talked about like the outcomes in other countries. The standards, really the main difference, America is by and far the best place to practice medicine. It is by and far the best place to get medical health care, which I'm going to talk on in a little bit. But our standards are much higher. And so when people are like, oh, the, pregnancy complications and the birth rate complications for America compared to Europe is so much lower, that's not it at all. What they consider is like living is the baby being alive, 10 or 14 days after birth. If a baby comes out of a mom and it has a heartbeat, it's considered alive, even if they die 10 seconds later. So
give them the old Ralph Northam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other reason that I think healthcare costs are so inflated, and the other thing that I think we can do to, I guess, mitigate some of these costs are, do you remember in late 90s, early 2000s, the Terry Schiavo case?
Yeah, she was, well, you explain it, but she was basically in a vegetative state, and there was a battle between the parents and the husband about whether to pull the plug, and the husband won, and they pulled the plug, right?
Yep, exactly right.
Okay.
She had a cardiac arrest, had a noxic brain injury, taken to the hospital, basically not enough blood flow to her head, and she was in this sort of state where she was able to make verbal sounds but not really communicate. She had non-purposeful movement, so moving her arms and legs, but in not really any meaningful way. And she got physical therapy, she got speech therapy, she got I think it was like 11 or 13 years of like intense rehab. She had neuro and psych and speech and the whole gambit to try and get her back. And throughout this whole process, you had the husband saying she doesn't want to live like this. The only way that we can't like kill her because she's alive, but if we just stop caring for her, if we stop feeding her because she can't feed herself, and just kind of let her starve and die, that would be more humane than keeping her in this state for another who knows how long. And then you had the parents saying, no, she's still in there, she's alive. National debate. It actually went to the Supreme Court. They said, pull the feeding tube. George W. Bush at the time said, no, put it back in. They put it back in. Supreme Court ended up overruling that somehow. They pulled it back out. She died 2 weeks later. And it sparked this whole national debate. But the reason I bring this up is 13 years of all that medical care. Doctors are getting paid, respiratory therapists are getting paid, nutritionists. Who's paying for it at the end? Multi-million-dollar, one person.
Is that a rhetorical question, or are you asking me?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Who's? I'm asking you, who's paying for it?
I assume you're going for some government angle here. I don't know. What? Who?
I mean, effectively, we are, right?
Okay.
Not only does the hospital, so I see this all the time at our hospital.
You're saying the costs are spread out to other consumers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. So if you have that is spread. So when you go to the hospital and you get your hand stitched up and it's $1,600, and you're like, $1,600 for a few stitches. Well, not only do they have to pay for the stitches and the 20 minutes of the doctor's time and the nurse's time, they also have to pay for all the people who've come in who have no money, no insurance. They're coming in, once a week saying, I have a diabetic foot infection again. I need another amputation.
I heard. Tell me if you've heard of anything to this effect, because I just heard this the other day, and I've never seen this, but I would imagine, kind of in the way you're describing, it's happening. Now, I went to the ER for the DVT, and my wife had to go to the ER last year for a different reason, and so we have had a couple ER bills that were higher than expected, and I think the reason is a lot of what you're describing there, that people show up and they have to be treated. and a lot of them don't have an ability to pay, so the hospital eats the cost and it gets passed on to others. But I was told the other day that and hospitals are required to provide, so they can't turn people away from the ER. Correct. At least. Now this person was telling me that drug addicts will show up at the ER complaining of something kind of ambiguous, like a migraine or a headache or a thing that you can't actually demonstrate conclusively necessarily, just so they can game their way to get morphine or other drugs. Have you ever heard of that happening?
Oh, all the time.
Okay, so this is a thing. I was like, okay, that makes sense that they would do that, but I've never heard of that. And so we're all paying for the junkies to get the free drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we had someone come in with sickle cell crisis, and they had apparently been going through city by city, state by state, basically saying, oh, yeah, I'm in sickle cell crisis. And then they get lots of pain medicine. They're there for a few days, and then they end up leaving what's called AMA, against medical advice. They sign themselves out. They, travel another 50 miles down to the next hospital. And
so the solution here is to do what they say the boogeyman is doing. It's to tell people to get that, is to turn them away and not provide them with life-saving care.
Get out of here!
Well, it's tough. I thought that at one point. So we have I don't know if it's a policy or what. It's called EMTALA, Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act.
Yeah.
It basically means that anyone, regardless of whether you can pay or not, needs to get emergency care.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what that emergency care is, we don't really know. And so you could say, oh, I had chest pain. I went to the ER. You have to treat me. But they say, you have heartburn, go home. So anyway, I don't want to have a society where I'm turning people away that need life-saving care because, they don't have the money this month. But a lot of our costs, if I'm just, I did a Google just to make sure that my numbers are right, but 5% of the population account for over half of all of our total healthcare spending. It's
wow.
Terry Shivos.
That's according to whom? What's that report, or what is that from?
I'm not sure. I just Googled it, but I remember learning about this I'm going to out myself here, but I went to medical school. I'm a physician, and so the vast majority of healthcare spending is spent on a very few sick, chronically ill people that are not abusing, but are like heavy users of the healthcare system. And I'm torn because I don't want to just let these people die because, well, it's kind of expensive. But also, I mean, it's impacting the other 95% who's paying exorbitant amounts of money to keep these people alive in, most of the cases, a very poor quality of life. These people can't work. They may be double amputees. They may have heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. They have, autoimmune diseases, chronic pain. And it's like, at what point do we just say, that's why I'm thinking, Canada's made a program. I don't know if you remember that, where it's basically medical assistance induced death. It's basically physician assisted suicide.
Oh, no. Like, okay, I don't want to, but we might have to kill some people.
Jeez. Yeah, that's what they said. They said this is gonna, if people want to die, and it'll save us the money. So if you want to die, we'll help you out.
Man, this I could talk for another half hour about this because my opinion has actually changed quite significantly on this. But it's on moral terms. It's not on cost terms. And I know that your evaluation surely would be moral too. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. But I've in the interest of time, I'll probably have to leave that to another conversation. But I tell you what, Adam, I appreciate your call. And normally I'm kind of on the Wednesday night shows, I'm kind of keeping it topic limited to the news of the day. But if you want to call in and talk more about that, about the assisted suicide and end of life stuff, I'll give you a voucher to talk about that anytime you want, because I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right. See ya.
Okay, WRXCS. Oh, looks like he had to take off maybe. So we dropped a caller, but we got Joshy Boy still sticking around. Joshy Boy, are you there?
Anyway, I'll give you a voucher to talk about.
You're ready to go. Get that stream turned off.
Sorry about that. I didn't even know I was on.
Well, it's really my fault because I told Dr. Adam that I needed to be quick, and then he's like, "Well, I'm a doctor and I know everything about medicine," and I said, "You can have an hour," and I basically gave him the better part of it. So, sorry about the wait there, but what's on your mind?
I'll make it real brief since there's at least one more person behind me.
Yeah, we got one more.
I just kind of wanted to quickly bitch and moan about the whole Black Lives Matter thing.
Go right ahead.
So, the super chat that I sent is partially a joke, but it's also kind of not a joke. I'm just getting real tired of these people who get up there and says, "Oh, he deserved a better life and he was such a good kid." I mean, the motherfucker was over here threatening people on a train, drugged out of his mind and everything, but nobody seems to care about that, right? Same thing with George Floyd. Same thing with every other guy who died by the hands of a white man, right? They never considered the fact that there were either a nuisance, a threat, or both in the case of different people. They always wanted to defend the criminals and they never want to praise the heroes.
Yeah.
It's funny how Luigi gets praised as a hero for killing a guy, a CEO, but Daniel Penny gets labeled as a devil because he killed a black guy, basically, right?
Yeah, these two stories simultaneously has been interesting to watch. And I saw another great meme. I forgot to save it for the show, but there's that SpongeBob meme with that SpongeBob character looking outside, and SpongeBob is down there with the other. I never watched SpongeBob, so I don't know the names of the characters. But he's looking out at the others outside, and the person inside is Derek Chauvin, and he's looking out at Daniel Penny and Kyle Rittenhouse. And I really feel bad for Derek Chauvin, man. I mean, of course, I felt bad for him for the sake of his own case, the police officer in the George Floyd case, because I don't believe that he committed felony murder in the way they convicted him. I think that he was given an impossible task to deal with a methed out, hulking freak, and and unfortunately it went the way that he did. But anyway, you see all these now. The case with Derek Chauvin and George Floyd was not a self-defense case per se, kind of, but a very similar case. And if you're Derek Chauvin sitting in prison watching these cases with similar fact patterns go the other way, you're like, son of a bitch, how come I didn't get that jury? Or what do I got to do?
And what was she? The co-founder of Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, Shavana Hawk or whatever her name is.
And she said she was a Christian lady?
Devout Christian. Yeah.
Nah, man, she's going to hell. This lady is not a Christian. That bitch is going to hell. I'm sick of people who are saying, "Oh, my Christian values," and as devout Christians and everything. Bitch, you're going to hell. That's all that it is, because you keep defending the criminals. You never defend the innocent, right?
Well,
but you couldn't tell me one thing about the Bible or anything like that. And the thing that pisses me off the most is the daddy, right?
That guy is a legendary piece of shit. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a monumental piece of shit. It says he didn't deserve to die. Well, motherfucker, you should have been in his life then. You could have prevented that shit from happening. But instead, you decided to fuck off somewhere because you're just another
I don't
statistic.
know. I don't know what's worse. If I could sit down and talk to him, I mean, obviously the lawsuit he's bringing and all that is terrible. But if I could sit down and talk to him honestly, I would ask, did you know that Jordan was a mentally ill, drug-addicted bum threatening or attacking people in New York on a regular basis? If the answer is yes, that's awful because you knew and didn't do anything about it. If the answer is no, that's also awful because you were an absent father while your son was suffering and indeed terrorizing others. And I don't know which is worse. Is it worse if he knew, or is it worse if he didn't know?
It's actually worse if he didn't know but decided not to do anything about it until his son died by a white man, no less, right? And decided to try to cash in on his son's death. Dude needs to get his ass kicked, first of all, just for that.
Yeah, it's
I'm tired of.
It's sick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I can say. But it's what he's doing is sick.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm tired of people like that. I'm tired of people pretending to care about. I don't mean to sound cliche or anything about Black lives and everything. I want my community to do well, but I'm sick of this shit right here.
Of course, and what she said about like
brothers killing. Go ahead.
What she said about nobody's coming to save us or whatever. It's like
they can't even save themselves in their own neighborhoods.
I don't expect black people to save me. I don't expect anybody of any race to save me. I want a good neighborhood with good people, and of course, but But the reality is building prosperity for my family is on me and my family. And when everybody operates with that mentality, that's how you build a good community, actually.
And we used to value that. Even during the Jim Crow era, that was one of our main values. God, family, patriotism, we had that shit.
Yeah, I mean,
all of a sudden when...
Of course, I want to take care of my neighbors, my community. I'm not so selfish that I don't care about, the people who live immediately around me. But the point is, I can't do that. No man can until he's taken care of his own home, his own household. Once I have my own household, once I've got my room cleaned up, Jordan Peterson, then I can concern myself with the problems of others. But yeah, if you can't take care of your own situation, expecting someone else to come in and save it, nobody can do a better job of that than you can.
It's always somebody else's fault. We can never take responsibility of our own actions or anything like that. Chris Rock made a stand-up comedy for Black people versus N-words. It's very funny. I think I've actually sent you the link before.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
He made one of the funniest jokes ever. He's because people often blame the media, right? He said, you can cut that mess out. And when I go into the money machine, I'm not watching my back for the media. I'm looking for brothers, is what he's saying. So when you go out in public and you see a group of Black dudes, I hate to be that one dude, but 9 times out of 10, they're up to no good. Right? When I go out in public, I ain't watching my back for a bunch of whiteys, right? I'm watching my back for people who look exactly like me, because 9 times out of 10, that's who I'm going to be fighting.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
I got my own kind, but shit.
And that commentary about Black vigilantes and stuff, it's like, who do you think is committing the most injustice against Black people? It's Black people.
Yeah,
so
Black folks.
That's where you need the vigilantes. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I don't want people to be abused. I don't want criminals to have some kind of reign of terror over other people. But Black vigilantes taking out, like, I don't know, some sort of KKK abusers or something, that's not a thing.
It's really not. I pray the day that I actually meet a Klansman so I can take a picture and say, I actually found one, right? But I
supposedly they're still out there. Yeah.
Man, I don't even think there's any left, to be honest with you. I think they're all died at this point.
Probably, but
it's insane. It really upsets me and grinds my gears. And I'm already, by my own community, I'm already told that I'm not Black enough. I don't act Black. I don't talk Black or anything like that. It's just, at this point, I may as well not be Black. So when the struggle is real, y'all better not call me.
Well, yeah, now you're really an honorary white. You won't even go to save them when they give you the call to come save them. That's what a true white person would do.
What is it, the reverse albino?
Yeah, I don't know, but
or
all right,
whatever
man,
Uncle Ruckus had.
Thank you, or Michael Jackson or something like that. Yeah,
I don't know.
Thank you for the call, and thank you for supporting the show as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. You have a good night.
You as well. Okay, last call tonight is going to go to Fyrak. Fyrak, are you there? Fyrak? Fyrak, I can see you lighting up, but I don't hear your mic.
There?
Oh, there we go. Now I got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was listening to the actual thing. G'day. Hey, how's it going?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, hey, Aussie caller. One of the few from down here.
He's part of the Aussie takeover. Well,
yes.
Excellent.
Hello again.
Yeah.
Except I wasn't there for the Christmas call.
Oh, well, what kind of Aussie listener are you?
One who's a bit busy at the minute.
I guess. All right. Well,
what's live life, eh?
What's on your mind?
Well, considering the discussion of healthcare at the minute, I'm actually the guy who was momentarily kicked out of home those years ago, if that jogs your memory.
I can't remember. This is something we must have talked about in the past, you're saying?
Yes.
I can't remember the details, so you'll have to
3 years ago.
You'll have to refresh my memory.
That's okay. That's all good. But yeah, let's say that the jab negotiated me out of home for a small time.
Okay.
So considering that, when it comes to keep this in your mind, considering the whole culture of healthcare and living well, if you don't treat your food as medicine, you treat medicine as food.
That's well put, and I believe that's true for sure.
Oh yeah, very much so. And so one of the reasons of me not getting the jab those years ago was because I am now recovering from alopecia. The Gardasil shot actually gave me my alopecia. And so it was actually my dermatologist actually has head on his shoulders. I was doing some reading research, found a little what was it? It was a little study whereby they gave rats just an over-the-counter drug. It's called quercetin, used to treat the plague if you ever catch the plague. And it actually helped me to get my hair back, whereby this is when it comes to healthcare and former healthcare worker, to actually advocate for yourself is one of those things which is not really talked about within healthcare itself, let alone, how do healthcare workers listen to patients?
Okay. And do you mean that specifically in the food context or just anything lifestyle-wise?
Oh, both.
Okay.
So whereby when I found this single little article when it came to my alopecia, send it across, hey doc, instead of like getting all crazed up on all sorts of drugs, we try this. Okay, that's on you. But tell me how it goes. Lo and behold, 6 months later, I now have a bit of fuzz on my head. Just because I was treating it like a vaccine injury, which was per the actual associated documentation. And now I have not yet heard back from the guy because, hey, treatment's working.
Yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time with doctors because, I'm still quasi young, and I haven't sought as much primary care as I should have. And especially now that I get more into like middle age, I definitely need to do that. So I haven't had a lot of doctor interaction in my young adult life. Obviously we have it now more with our kids, but one thing I've discovered in my interaction with pediatricians, now there are some that are sort of set in their ways, and that's why I guess we've had a little bit of trouble finding a pediatrician we could work with, although we've had better luck lately. But I have found that a lot of times people, I think, feel a pressure to just listen to what their doctor says automatically, like the doctor is some kind of dictator over your own health choices. If you give good faith, if you ask good faith questions or even give good faith pushback, there aren't a lot of doctors that aren't willing to consider your perspective or budge on their recommended course of action. Like, I guess what I've learned through interacting with doctors with my kids is you should be more active in that way. It's not a parent-child relationship where they tell you and you obey. It should be more interactive, and they have an advisory role, of course, but it doesn't mean that they have ownership over your how you choose to pursue your own health in that way.
Very much so. And the God complex.
Maybe some of them,
to put it gently.
Try to avoid those.
Well, this is the thing, is that this is looking at a culture very much within, at least the conservative space, you're looking at those who asked more questions when it comes to the jab.
Yeah. Yeah, and any medical decision you make, you should be able to explain to yourself in plain terms of why you're doing it. If it's as simple as like, well, the doctor told me, I hope your doctor is God then, because that's a very high level of trust. And maybe some, I don't know, if you got a really, really great doctor, maybe. But for the most part, if you can't explain it to yourself, you might consider not,
Did your Dr. Canadian Healthcare you off a bridge?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. if they told you to, would you? And frankly, a lot of doctors did advise that in the COVID context. I mean, I swear, I got suspended on Twitter for saying that pretty soon Dr. Fauci will be saying, hang yourself to slow the spread. They banned me for a week for that. But you had a lot of doctors that were encouraging people, and you could argue maybe in the vaccine context that itself was. But they advocated for a lot of damaging courses of action, a lot of self-harm, even though it's not necessarily intentionally self-harming, its effects, its results were self-harming. And so if you're not clear in your own mind why you're doing what they're telling you to do, you can become victimized by them in that way.
And it's the power disparity which very much plays into what you can and can't get away with. And whereby almost a necessity to have someone who's in the field, or at least have some experience of the field, to help you walk through things.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so I guess that this is one of those things whereby taking the time to be invested into people, so that even if they are, what would be a good way to say it? Like across the range of thought, but hey, let me pick your brain with this sort of idea, cross-reference it. Okay, hey doc, here's a question for you, and then take him out of left field.
Yeah. Well, they used to be saying, or we used to think getting a second opinion was a good thing. And now it's, at least in the COVID context, it was like no second opinions because there are no second opinions. Every doctor thinks the same thing. And if you have any questions otherwise, you are a science denier. You're a whatever. It was amazing how like all of a sudden medicine became this giant monolith. They all believed the exact same thing. The solution to the problem was the exact same thing. You will get in line, or you're a bad person. If you want demonstration for how corrupt the medical industry can become, I look no further than that. And that it doesn't mean I won't seek medical care. It doesn't mean I won't try to find a doctor I trust. But it certainly means that you exercise the sort of skepticism that's necessary to make sure that these people who get in line on behalf of whoever's telling them to get in line aren't exerting that effect on you. But I appreciate your call, man. Thank you for the thoughts. If you have a final thought, go ahead.
Well, perhaps on an interesting parallel, we're getting a similar sort of 2 minutes of hate within the gaming realm. I'm actually halfway through a game development course. And taking the time to create like a parallel community in the same sense that we're talking about with healthcare within the video game sphere and culture sphere, taking that next step in that sort of mind.
Well, Godspeed. I know the video game industry has been taken over by a whole bunch of nonsense otherwise, not necessarily COVID or medicine related, but politics.
Ideological imperative.
Yeah, all that. And I've been kind of out of video games ever since my kids were born. I would like to play more video games. I just don't have the time. But it seems like a good time to have stepped away from video games because it looks like the quality of the storytelling and other elements have gone downhill, unfortunately. But hey, I hope that you're able to repair it because it's a great entertainment medium. I miss it.
It's going to be a agonizing patience, but
well, Godspeed.
Patience is always worth the pain. But hey, God willing, when I get to a alpha or beta, you're more than welcome.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in. Appreciate it.
Gotcha, Matt.
Okay, we'll end our callers there. We'll catch up with our super chatters. We'll call it a night. Over on YouTube and Tippy, it's ironic that the BLM vigilante guy wants his very own Batman. The other guy in the photo is dressed like Black Riddler. I'm going to have to, can I pull that up? Let me see if I can find that. Because I didn't notice the Riddler man. Let me see if I can find it before I move on quickly here. It's not that one. Which story was it? Must be this one. Yeah, there's Black Riddler right there, I guess. Good observation. Thank you, Electric Ninja. Ryan Allen says, regarding Ratchet Ratchet Republican's point, foreign countries don't pay hardly anything for national defense. Meanwhile, expect us to pick up the tab and be world police and then bitch about that too. Yeah, I mean, when you're a small country that can rely on a bunch of larger countries to defend you, as many in Europe are, you may have the luxury of paying for healthcare services in a different way. Yeah, it's not to say that I want it to be that way either, but it is to say that the budgetary considerations of some countries might not be the same as others, for sure. Thank you, Ryan. Mortimer Duke says, to a huge extent, the decision about which treatments are covered depends upon the benefit level employees wish to provide and employees elect to pay for. Yeah, so I guess I've never thought about how it is that employees and businesses select and negotiate their insurance policies and whether or not like you can be active in that yourself as a consumer in the workplace. When I worked like a more traditional job when I was younger and there was insurance offered, that was just, I didn't really care about that at the time because I was in my early to mid 20s and it's like, okay, whatever, there's health insurance. I never evaluated that closely and what that meant and how I could potentially get involved if I wanted to change it or wanted to improve it. But yeah, I assume that there are decisions made about that people who are a part of that business can get involved in if they would like to. Thank you, Mortimer. Bob Terwilliger, if public health care is the same quality as private, why do countries like Australia have a thriving private health insurance market? I assume they do, yeah. And that to me would be kind of a nightmare scenario where you are paying very high tax rates to cover what is supposed to be a single-payer healthcare system, as in the government is paying for it. But the care or something about the service is inadequate, and so to get care that you find adequate, you have to go shopping privately anyway. I mean, then you're forking over a bunch of money to the government, you're not getting the service that you're paying for, and you're still paying out of pocket later to get what you want. I mean, you're just getting hosed in that situation. But I don't know anything about the Australian healthcare system, so I'll have to take your word for it. Over on Rumble, GR says, yes, man, look up the Columbus PD ATF video already. That's right. I was referring to the article pulling the austere Muslim bit down again with Daniel Penny's attacker, called him a subway rider that Penny killed. Of course, the subway rider. Yeah, this was some sort of ATF interaction in Columbus that I haven't yet seen, but I'll have to check it out.
Definitely worth checking into.
Also says, I have to confess to all my brethren here, I'm simping for a Twitch streamer right now. She's a popular YouTuber who's really pretty to look at with a sweet, shy doll personality. I'm not paying. Well, thank you for confessing your sins in the chat around here. And I hope you are able to recover from the simpery. Thanks for supporting the show. I appreciate it. We're good on Odyssey. We're good on DLive. Quick refresh on YouTube and Tippy, and we'll call it a night. We got one more. Mark Whitley says, in honor of a dear friend that passed away this week from a brain virus, he got the virus swimming in the Atlantic Ocean this summer. R.I.P. Greg. Oh my gosh. Very sorry to hear it.
We love you. You're very special.
A virus from the ocean. That is, I've never even heard of that before. I guess it makes sense that it could happen. Not a common way to go, I wouldn't think. But I'm very sorry to hear about the loss of your friend, Mark. All the best to Greg and his family. And thank you for remembering him. And thanks for supporting the show. And be careful while swimming in the ocean, apparently. I'll have to look this up. But I'm sorry for your friend. And all the best to you, man. I appreciate your support for the show. All right. Well, I think we're all set. Thank you for tuning in this evening. As always, very much appreciated. If you'd like more to listen to, head on over to the podcast page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/podcasts. Got not just the video show, but the audio show over there too, if you prefer listening to the show. Anything else show related, mattchristiansenmedia.com is where you find it. I'll be back on Sunday. Have a great night and a great week.